My sister is kind and quirky and caring and my best friend.
Friday, March the 31st, 2023. A cool spring morning in Winona, Minnesota. The day started like any other for 26-year-old Meline Kingsbury, a devoted mother, a hardworking professional, and a woman quietly preparing for a new chapter in her life. By 8 a.m., she and her longtime partner, Adam Fravel, dropped off their 2 young children at daycare. Security cameras captured her dark blue Chrysler Town and country minivan pulling back into the driveway shortly after. And then, she was gone.
The Fillmore County community and surrounding areas are coming together to bring her home.
When's the last time you heard from her or anything like that?
This morning, when I last heard from her. I hugged her behind her and I said, "You don't want to end up like that in between them, do you?" And I know that was really bad.
At 8:20 p.m., the Winona Police Department was called and an investigation was launched. When officers arrived at her home, they found no signs of forced entry, no struggle, no indication that Maddie had left willingly. Even more unsettling, her phone, wallet, ID, and keys were all inside. Her minivan was still parked outside. Whatever had happened to Maddie had happened fast. For more than 2 months, search teams combed the fields, rivers, and wooded areas surrounding Winona. Thousands of volunteers joined the effort, but the only thing they found was silence. Then on June 7, 2023, that silence was shattered. Roughly 46 miles south of Winona, along a remote stretch of highway in Fillmore County, human remains were discovered in a wooded area near the Mississippi River. The condition of the body suggested it had been there for weeks, exposed to the elements, hidden from sight. Investigators worked quickly, but deep down, everyone feared what they already knew. 2 days later, on June 9, 2023, the worst was confirmed. The remains belonged to Meline Kingsbury. The missing mother, the woman whose face had become a haunting reminder of unresolved tragedy, had been found. But the discovery only led to more chilling questions. Who put her there? When? Why? As the investigation continued, the walls began closing in on one man.
Please help us find Meline. The children need their mother. We need our daughter, our sister, our aunt, and our best friend back.
Meline Kingsbury was born on June 1, 1996, in Winona, Minnesota. The youngest of 3 siblings, she grew up in a close-knit and loving family. Described as smart, kind, and full of life, Maddie had a sharp sense of humor and a strong work ethic that set her apart from an early age. She pursued her passion for public health at Winona State University, later securing a prestigious role at the Mayo Clinic as a clinical research coordinator. Ambitious and driven, she was also working toward a master's degree in public health administration to advance her career. But above all, Maddie was a devoted mother. Her 5-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son were her world. She was hands-on, nurturing, and determined to give them a bright future. Despite balancing work, school, and motherhood, she always put her children first. However, behind closed doors, Maddie's relationship with Adam Fravel, the father of her children, was far from perfect. Friends and family later revealed that Adam was controlling, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. Maddie had secretly begun searching for a new home, planning to leave him and start fresh. But she never got the chance. Friday, March 31, 2023, started out as a normal morning. Maddie and Adam got up early, got their kids dressed, and headed out the door. By 8 a.m., they dropped the children off at daycare together. Security footage captured them exiting the minivan, Maddie standing beside the vehicle as Adam walked the children inside. At 8:15 a.m., Maddie's phone sent what would be her final text message. It was nothing out of the ordinary, just a routine response. But from that moment on, Maddie's voice would go silent. According to Adam, he and Maddie returned home together. He claimed she told him she had a work meeting and that she planned to head to Rochester for the day. But by 10 a.m., Adam says she was simply gone. His version of events was simple. Maddie had left on her own. But there was one glaring problem. Her phone, wallet, keys, and ID were all still inside the house. Her car was still parked in the driveway. How could she have left with no means of transportation? That evening, after repeated unanswered calls, Maddie's family contacted the Winona Police Department. Officers arrived at her home and conducted a welfare check. They knocked. They searched. But there was no sign of Maddie, no sign of where she could have gone. And so the search for Meline Kingsbury began.
I'm sure you're aware of what's all going on. Some people called about Meline a little concerned, and we're just trying to get an idea of where she might be.
Yes.
When's the last time you heard from her or anything like that?
Yeah, so this morning when I last heard from her, so that's why personally I wasn't very concerned yet.
What time about was that?
Probably around 10.
But was she supposed to pick up the children today?
Yes, usually, so we usually do drop-offs and pickups together. And this morning we both did the drop-off, and I couldn't get any response from her since before 10 or whatever. And I tried calling her. We usually pick up the kids around 4:15. And I tried calling her a bunch of times, I think 3:30 and like 3:45 and 4. And I didn't get any response, so I just picked up the kids myself.
You know anybody in town she might be with? Any clubs or organizations she's affiliated with?
Not clubs or anything.
Does she do it like a weekly thing, like a girls' night out or anything like that, usually?
No, nothing like that.
Anywhere else in town you think she might be?
At this time of night, no.
Does she ever go to the bars at all?
No, we're not drinkers at all.
From the start, investigators zeroed in on Adam Fravel. He was the last person to see Maddie alive. His story was inconsistent, his behavior was unusual, and something about his timeline didn't add up.
I left the house around 10 to bring some stuff down to my parents. And then when I came back home, I noticed that my car was still there. She was going to take my car to work today, and my car was still there. And she wasn't there. That's the last I saw from her. And then I tried texting her, tried calling her, and I haven't heard anything since.
And you had the van today, correct?
Yep.
And
Yep. I was hauling stuff down to my parents.
Gotcha. And your car was still there, and you now have your car, correct?
Correct.
So does she usually ride with anybody to work, or is there anybody she could be with right now?
She doesn't usually ride with anybody to work, but she has before. She has a couple coworkers in the number. So that's what I figured she did. But I don't know.
Adam told police that after Maddie left, he had taken her minivan to move some of his belongings to a storage unit. He said he returned home around 11:30 a.m., found the house empty, and assumed Maddie had gone to work. But what Adam didn't expect was that police would uncover surveillance footage that told a very different story. At 9:45 a.m., security cameras captured Adam switching the license plates on Maddie's minivan. It was a strange, calculated move, one that suggested he was trying to make the vehicle unrecognizable. Why would someone do that unless they had something to hide? Police also discovered a 45-minute gap in Adam's whereabouts that morning, a window of time when his location could not be accounted for. And when authorities searched Maddie's home, they found no evidence that she had left willingly, no packed bags, no travel plans, just a mother who had seemingly vanished into thin air.
Are you any closer to finding a suspect or person of interest?
Again, it's open and active. The leads that are coming in is unbelievable. We are actually getting hundreds of them. We have a lot of information that we're trying to process right now to help do that. So it continues to be open and active.
As the investigation deepened, police began to uncover a history of abuse. Friends and family came forward, revealing that Adam had threatened Maddie before. He had once pinned her down and told her she would end up like Gabby Petito if she didn't listen. Maddie had confided in a friend, texting, "It wasn't funny. That's what sealed it for me." She was afraid of him. The evidence was piling up, but without a body, police couldn't yet make an arrest. All they could do was wait. For more than 2 months, search teams combed through fields, rivers, and wooded areas, hoping to find Maddie. Thousands of volunteers joined the effort, but there was nothing. Then on June 7, 2023, police received a tip. A discovery had been made. Human remains were found near a wooded area in Fillmore County, roughly 46 miles from Maddie's home. The location was strategic, hidden, far from immediate suspicion, but law enforcement had been watching Adam's movements for weeks. They knew this area was familiar to him, and when the forensic results came in, the worst was confirmed. The remains belonged to Meline Kingsbury.
Adam, I'll ask again, do you know where Maddie is? Did you have anything to do with her disappearance?
I do not.
Okay. I just think you're dealing with a lot here. I think you've been dealing with a lot here. You have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old together. So I think something happened in that apartment.
Well, from you guys' perspective, why would I hurt or make the mother of my children disappear?
Because you're pissed.
I don't know that. Maybe it just happened. I don't know, but more happened, Adam. And I'm not saying that on a whim. I'm saying that based on the last 30 hours that we've spent on this case. Adam, you gotta live too. And I just think you're holding back here. You know more.
No, I don't. I don't know. Maddie and I do not have any history of violence besides emotional.
Unfortunately, that's not what I heard either.
We've never laid hands on each other or anything like that. So why someone would say that, I don't know. I know I can tell you.
I don't. I'm struggling because you guys went home. Her
I want to believe
jacket
you,
was
Adam.
in the house. Her bag for work was there.
Where was her phone? Did you guys ever find her phone?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So why would she leave all that behind? And no vehicle's gone, and her jacket is there. I'm stuck there, and then you leave a couple hours later, and I'm just having a hard time with it.
Adam, do you know that there's like some zip ties or something in the back of your van?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
I think we have that like in the storage compartment or something like that back there, where she has other materials that.
Okay.
It's just stuff that we keep in the van.
Okay. What do you use those for?
I don't know why, but I didn't put those there.
Okay.
It probably wasn't something. Oh, maybe because a couple weekends ago she took the van up to her dad's. Her dad put a new oil pan. Some kind of major repair he did on the engine, and I know he had to zip tie something. Maddie mentioned he had to zip tie some vacuum hoses or something together. Maybe that's what it was from.
Okay.
But I've never personally.
Timeline is off, and these text messages where you're kind of suddenly worried about her, they don't make sense, and they almost seem like they're intentional. They almost seem like they're breadcrumbs that you knew the police would pick up.
Okay.
And I'm trying to work with you here. Again,
I'm just saying now I'm not going to say much because now my wall is up and I'm probably going to have to get a lawyer because I'm feeling really accused and stuff.
Okay.
I mean, you can ask what you want and I'll answer. I'm just saying I'm putting up my defense now. I've been working with you guys completely, but now I'm getting accused of stuff, so
All I can say to that is we wouldn't do another job.
No, I get that too. I get that too. So.
Only because I'll reiterate again, you were the last one to have seen her. You were the last one to be in the house. You didn't have her to be able to only have access to the house. You didn't have access to your cars. You went home with her. And so that's why. That's why. It was out. I don't know.
I'm just as confused as you guys, you know what I mean? Like, and I know, I get it, I'm a suspect when we recently broke up and everything, I get it. But I'm completely compliant. I mean, right?
Yeah, you've been great.
Okay.
You've been cooperative, absolutely. And I appreciate that.
Whatever you
Thank
guys
you
need.
for that. I'm struggling with where she went.
I know.
You're infatuated with the Gabby Petito story, your own words.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, when like the manhunt stuff was going on.
My biggest fear right now is that this is.
No, I get it.
This is mimicking that case.
I get it.
And the guy that's infatuated that case is sitting right in front of me. And he's doing a really good job keeping it together, and I'm not buying it. And I'm not. I just want to find her.
No.
For your kids, like I said, Adam, your own admission, you're infatuated with the Gabby Petito story. This case is rearing some eerily similar circumstances. She also said that you made a commentary that if she doesn't listen, that she's going to end up like Gabby Petito. That's what she told several people, and we interviewed those people, and they told us that individually, not having talked with each other.
Yep, I know what you're talking about. So this was a it's gonna come from that. This was when that was going down. When I don't know when this Gabby Petito thing happened again, 2020 or something like that. But I just remember I was infatuated with the case. It was just it was a man with me. I was just into the news on it. And I can remember it very vividly. I went outside. I think I put trash outside or something. I came back in, and then I came up behind her and I hugged her. And it was so stupid. I was just trying to make a joke, but I hugged her behind her and I said, "You don't want to end up like Gabby Petito, do you?" And I know that was really bad. That was a really stupid joke, but it was honestly just a joke for a moment, and inappropriate. But yeah, this was when that was happening. Nothing like that. No, this is when that case was going on.
Were you guys joking around that day? Were you not getting along that day? What was it like that day?
No, like I said, it was literally just a joke, and it was just,
Yeah, it's not a very good joke.
I know, and it makes me look bad. I get that. That's the truth. I don't know what else to say.
I appreciate explaining this.
Yeah, right. Because this happened. It was at the townhouse. I don't remember what year.
When she told the other people, she said it occurred during a time when you guys were a possible breakup, and that's when you made that statement.
I won't say that.
Well, that's what she's saying to her friends.
Okay.
And you said she doesn't lie, and it sounds like she tells you to your face that she's seeing someone new.
Yeah.
So
what?
So I mean, that's a pretty interesting statement that she's making, and I'm trying to learn about her through her words to other people, through her phone, through her coworkers, through her friends, through her family, through you. And I can tell you that it appears that this relationship was not going super well, to the point that she's wanting to get out of there as soon as possible.
I would agree with the last thing you just said about wanting to get out of there as soon as possible, because if that was the case, it would have happened a while ago.
On June 9th, 2023, police moved in. Adam Fravel was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The man who had tried to deceive investigators, the man who had acted indifferent while Maddie's family searched for her, was now in handcuffs.
My sister Meline, who's been missing since March 31st of this year from Winona, her ex, Adam Fravel, has officially been arrested. Finally, he's been arrested. He is at Winona County Jail right now. And I'm not ready to say a lot right now. We're kind of waiting on some more information right now. But yes, I can confirm he has been arrested.
The truth was finally coming to light. With Maddie's remains recovered and the evidence against Adam Fravel mounting, prosecutors moved forward with charges of second-degree murder. The courtroom was tense as the case unfolded, with Maddie's family and friends watching closely, determined to see justice served. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture of Maddie's final hours. They argued that Adam had killed Maddie in a fit of rage, fearing that she was about to leave him. Evidence showed that after the daycare drop-off, Maddie never left the house alive. Instead, Adam used her own minivan to dispose of her body, driving 46 miles to Fillmore County, where she was later found buried in a remote wooded area. The prosecution presented a damning collection of evidence. Adam's contradictory statements, surveillance footage of him switching license plates, and digital forensic data tracking his movements to and from the disposal site. Testimonies from friends and family detailed Adam's violent tendencies and disturbing threats, including the time he pinned Maddie down and told her she would end up like Gabby Petito. In contrast, Adam's defense team struggled to counter the prosecution's overwhelming case. He pleaded not guilty, denying any involvement in Maddie's death. But his lack of cooperation, refusal to assist in the search, and cold, emotionless demeanor in court only further cemented suspicions against him. Throughout the trial, Maddie's family remained steadfast, showing unwavering strength as they listened to the heartbreaking details of her final moments. They were no longer just grieving loved ones, they were advocates for justice. After weeks of testimony, evidence, and deliberation, the verdict was read.
Well, that jury coming back a little bit after 11 o'clock today to deliver these verdicts on 4 counts. There's first-degree murder. There's 2 counts of that, and then 2 counts of second-degree murder. In the end, for sentencing, it really only matters about sentencing on the top count here. But, you know, this is something that the prosecution said was very much a case about digital evidence, something you didn't see 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So much about location data and text messages. A lot of the text messages that really illustrated a volatile relationship between Adam Fravel and Maddie Kingsbury. And afterwards, her family and her friends all expressed the importance they feel of the work of using this case to help women who are victims of domestic abuse.
The weight of the truth had prevailed, and Adam Fravel was finally held accountable for taking Maddie's life. For Maddie's family, it was a step toward closure, but the pain of losing her would never fade. Meline Kingsbury's life was stolen far too soon, but her story does not end with her tragic death. She was more than a victim. She was a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a woman with dreams and ambitions. She was loved by many, and her impact on those who knew her will never fade. While her family found some relief in seeing Adam Fravel convicted, their fight is not over. Justice for Maddie is not just about a guilty verdict. It's about making sure no one else suffers the same fate. In the wake of her murder, Maddie's family has become advocates for domestic violence awareness and missing persons cases. They have used their voices to shed light on the warning signs of abusive relationships, urging people to recognize when a loved one may be in danger.
When you think of her story of, leaving her kids at the daycare, ready to go to work, a mom who loves her children. It just resonates with everyone. And people want to know what happened to
They are fighting for better protections for victims of coercive control and intimate partner violence, ensuring that others don't feel as trapped as Maddie did. Her story has sparked conversations nationwide, reminding people that domestic violence doesn't always look the way we expect, that sometimes the most dangerous relationships are the ones hidden behind closed doors, that victims like Maddie don't always get a second chance to escape, and that as a society, we must do more to support those who feel they have nowhere to turn. Though her children will grow up without their mother, they will grow up knowing who she was, how deeply she loved them, and how hard she fought to give them a better life. Maddie's family, friends, and supporters will ensure that her memory lives on, not just as a cautionary tale, but as a symbol of strength, resilience, and the urgent need for change. Meline Kingsbury was more than just a headline. She was a fighter. She was a mother. She was a light that should never have been dimmed. And as long as her name is spoken, as long as her story is told, she will never be forgotten. This is for Maddie. This is for justice. This is for every woman who never got the chance to escape. If you found Maddie's story impactful, please like, share, and subscribe to help raise awareness for victims of domestic violence. Every voice matters. Every story deserves to be told.
Since we don't communicate with him and his family, all we can really go off of is kind of what they say on social media. And it's mostly, you know, they're upset that they're maybe not involved in certain things, but, you know, they haven't been particularly, they haven't planned anything of their own, I guess I'll say. Any vigils or searches or get-togethers, anything like that.
A newly released police report tonight uncovers the motive for the murder of a Western Michigan University student named Aniya Mack.
Lewis shows these text messages from Pastor Strickland to Mack, where Strickland says he's trying to give the WMU student the best she's ever had.
He's got something in his hand. Something in his hand.
On a quiet summer night in June 2018, the Kalamazoo Police Department received what seemed like a routine call, a missing persons report. A concerned friend had reached out, worried about 24-year-old Aniya Mack, a bright and promising psychology student at Western Michigan University. She had not been seen or heard from in days, an unusual absence that raised alarms among those who knew her best.
It's unlikely to just not answer the phone, it sounds like. If anything is going on, I'm like pretty much the only person that she has here besides her family. But like me and her, we have been best friends for 24. I'm only 24, but we have been best friends our entire being, basically.
When officers arrived at Hunter Ridge Apartments, where Aniya lived, they expected to find an overworked college student who had simply taken a break from social interactions.
It's a roommate's room with the TV flashing. So it looks like somebody is home at least. Maybe not. He's working on getting a phone number for a roommate right now. Hi, is this Cora? Cora, this is Aniya's best friend. Are you at home? Aniya has been missing for 2 days, to my understanding. I drove all the way here from Muskegon because yes, because the police are here as well. Is she up there? She's coming here. Okay, thank you.
But as they stepped onto the property, they noticed something strange. Inside the apartment, the unsettling discoveries continued. The bathtub was filled with water, as if someone had started a bath but never taken it. A television was left on, flickering against the walls of an empty apartment. The laundry machine was running, containing men's clothes mixed with household linens. But of Aniya herself, there was no sign.
When's the last time you were here before?
This morning I came back from work around like 6 and I went to the movies and I came back here.
When's the last time you saw her?
Not before Saturday. I left home for graduation. I graduated Saturday.
You come in.
And then this is her room right here. But someone was here today because they turned on the air and they put some clothes in the washer. So when I was gone, like I thought maybe she came. But
Have you seen her boyfriend around here?
I haven't seen anybody, honestly. But I left for the weekend, so I thought maybe she just went home.
At first glance, there were no clear signs of foul play. But as investigators would soon discover, this was no ordinary disappearance.
I think it's just a little fishy. He's the only person we haven't talked to.
Yeah, the wife. She's gonna end up calling in the morning.
I hope so. Where the hell's she been at though? Both of her cars are here. Boyfriend has no car. Her best friend, her parents, her god sister, her pastor. She's been at work.
And from what other people have said, has the boyfriend been around her the last couple of days?
Well, he claims he hasn't seen her since Sunday either.
What about talking with her?
Yeah, I need to get that from him.
Aniya Mack was the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. With an infectious laugh, a sharp mind, and a compassionate heart, she had spent her entire life striving for excellence. In high school, she was a star student, an athlete, and an active member of various clubs. Even in college, her passion for helping others was evident. She worked at Great Lakes Alternative Research Center, assisting children with autism. Her personal life was just as full. She had a strong support system of friends and family who adored her. She was deeply involved in her church, singing in the choir and dancing with a local performance group. Those closest to her knew she was driven, hardworking, and had big dreams for her future. But Aniya also had a secret struggle. Her relationship with Donovan Lewis, a 25-year-old former community college basketball player and YMCA lifeguard. The relationship, though seemingly normal on the surface, was riddled with conflicts, insecurities, and toxic patterns. Friends had noticed red flags. Donovan could be possessive, jealous, and prone to outbursts of anger. Aniya had confided in some friends about past incidents, but no one could have predicted just how dangerous things would become.
Do you think this is an actual? Like an actual missing person?
Well, nobody knows where she's at right now. She's missing.
Like, okay, well, I mean,
do I think that she's endangered? No. Absolutely not.
Okay.
We've got nothing to lead us to believe that she's endangered other than the fact that boyfriend was an asshole at one point.
I don't know. There's still somebody coming and going from the apartment. That's the weird part.
Yeah.
So, like, roommate hasn't seen her in almost a week. He doesn't think anything of it.
The last time anyone had spoken to Aniya was on Sunday, June 24th, 2018. That evening, she and Donovan had yet another argument, this time over messages Donovan found on her phone. These messages, sent by Pastor Strickland, a respected community leader, led Donovan to believe that Aniya was cheating on him. The idea of another man in Aniya's life, especially someone with power and influence, sent him into a jealous rage. Aniya, fed up with the accusations, told Donovan she wanted him to leave for good.
Like, if she was going somewhere, she would definitely pack her makeup. That's here. This looks like what would be her purse. A bag that she do her hair stuff with. That's here. Like, I'm just like, what the f***?
She began packing his belongings into a suitcase, preparing to finally end their relationship. But Donovan snapped. As tensions escalated, he punched Aniya, knocking her unconscious. Consumed by anger and betrayal, he went to the kitchen, grabbed a large butcher knife, and slit her throat before stabbing her multiple times. Realizing what he had done, he placed a garbage bag over her head, stuffed her body into the suitcase she had been using to pack his things, and zipped it shut. With her lifeless body hidden away, Donovan cleaned up the crime scene as best he could. He disposed of the mattress cover, wiped down surfaces, and removed items that could contain blood evidence. But he needed a way to permanently get rid of the body. The next day, under the cover of darkness, he carried the suitcase to a dumpster near her apartment. But as panic set in, he feared someone might find it. That night, he retrieved the suitcase, borrowed his mother's van, and drove to Comstock Creek, a secluded waterway outside the city. There, he waded into the water, sank the suitcase in the muddy depths, and left, believing his crime would never be discovered. It all began with Pastor Strickland's cryptic messages, words that ignited a dangerous spark of doubt in Donovan's mind. Now let's look into the case to find out more about the pastor's connection to Aniya Mac's tragic story. Was he just an innocent figure whose words were misunderstood, or was there something more behind them? As we uncover the clues, we might discover a truth that changes everything we thought we knew. When police first entered Aniya Mac's apartment, they were met with an unsettling combination of normalcy and strangeness. There were no obvious signs of forced entry, a struggle, or visible blood stains.
Yeah, somebody definitely came in today, for sure. Because when I left, the air wasn't on.
Does her boyfriend ever come over here and do any laundry or anything?
Yeah, they always do laundry together.
Okay.
So it's not like out of the ordinary.
Does he have a key?
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. Like, somebody was here because I don't think he has a key. Usually, if he's coming, like, I'll leave the door unlocked. Like, if I know he's here, or like she'll leave the door unlocked. I don't even see her key.
Things officers typically looked for in missing persons or homicide cases. The apartment appeared lived in, with the television still on and the air conditioning running. But the eerie absence of Aniya herself made everything feel wrong. The more officers searched, the more bizarre details they uncovered. The bathtub was full of water, as if someone had drawn a bath but never got in. The washing machine was mid-cycle, containing men's clothing and household linens, including bath mats that were missing from the bathroom floor. It was as if someone had been cleaning up or covering their tracks, but there was no clear evidence to suggest what had happened. Outside, the mystery deepened. Aniya's white 2008 Chevy Malibu was parked in the lot, missing its license plates. Strangely, another identical white Malibu sat nearby, but this one had her plates attached, despite being registered to a man named Gustavo.
Did you hear what I found out about the plates? Her car, her Malibu over there in the corner, the plates missing off of it. I found it on another Malibu, a couple spots down. It's not registered to her, which is kind of strange.
So they swapped the plates on the cars?
Yeah. There's a white Malibu that comes back to her by the VIN. No plate. The plate that belongs on it is on another Malibu. A few spots down, another white Malibu. Somebody else's name.
Gustavo fellow?
Yeah.
Both cars had flat tires, making it clear that neither had been driven in recent days. This raised a troubling question. If Aniya had left, how did she go? Officers began speaking with Aniya's friends, family, and neighbors, piecing together the last known moments before she vanished. They learned that no one had spoken to her since Sunday, June 24th, days before she was officially reported missing. The more people they interviewed, the more it became clear that her boyfriend, Donovan Lewis, was a person of interest. Friends described a troubled relationship filled with jealousy, control, and emotional abuse. They recounted past incidents where Donovan had been physically aggressive, including an altercation where he trapped Aniya's arm in a car window and drove off with her stuck. They revealed that the couple had frequent arguments, often over Donovan's insecurities and accusations of infidelity. Despite these warning signs, there was no concrete evidence linking him to her disappearance, at least not yet. The police tried to contact Donovan, but he was nowhere to be found. Calls went unanswered, and he was not at any of his usual locations. At this point, authorities did not yet have proof of a crime, but Donovan's absence only deepened their suspicions. If he was truly worried about his missing girlfriend, why had he not reached out? Why was he avoiding law enforcement? As officers stood outside Aniya's apartment discussing the strange circumstances of the case, they were blindsided by an unexpected turn of events. A man suddenly approached them from the shadows. It was Donovan Lewis. Before they could even ask him a question, he calmly looked at them and confessed, "I killed my girlfriend."
What's going on, sir?
Right here, we talk about on the way.
Just tell me now.
I killed my girlfriend.
Where is she? Where is she?
She's in the creek.
Where at? You got any weapons on you, Don?
I don't have anything, so.
You get that down. Alright, I gotta read some stuff to you real quick, okay?
It was a moment that stunned the officers. Most investigations take weeks or even months before a suspect confesses, if they ever do. But here was Donovan standing before them, admitting to murder without hesitation. It was as if he had already made peace with his fate, knowing there was no way out. Officers immediately placed him under arrest, but their work was far from over. They still had one major question left to answer. Where was Aniya?
Is she in the trunk of one of these cars?
No. He told us that he's in creeks around the east side. I'm thinking maybe on the east side of the town he's there.
In the creek?
In a creek.
Okay. Well, that took a twist.
Yeah, I'm thinking that way at all.
The moment Donovan Lewis calmly confessed to killing Aniya Mack, the investigation shifted from a missing persons case to a homicide. The officers, momentarily stunned by his blunt admission, quickly sprang into action.
He chooses to spontaneously utter things after the fact, then that's him, okay? You've already told him twice now. And then, you don't want to talk, you don't have to talk, those kind of things, okay? When you go back in, move his chair to the other side of the table. Okay. And just tell him, I don't want you in that corner, I'd like you closer to me. My sergeant's gonna know all about safety.
So stay where I'm at?
Stay where you're at. Put him over in that little corner so we can see him. Okay.
Despite his sudden confession, police couldn't simply take his word for it. A murder confession, while significant, is only as strong as the evidence backing it up. They needed to know where Aniya's body was, how he killed her, and whether he was telling the whole truth.
What's been going on?
Just had a rough week last week. The car had to pass her boundary. That tire went flat.
Oh, is that what happened?
It was a slow week, so we were filling in, and then on Sunday, when we went to my family lake house, she wanted to go to church. She went outside, and the front tire was flat.
Think somebody's doing it? Or you think the car's just old and the tires are bad, or what?
I don't know. Whatever she got going on with the pastor.
Oh.
And when she got the car, she told me the mechanic came to pick her up, and she told me, you know, she got a new car, we got a loaner car from the church. And recently she told me, after I kind of gave her, I told her I want to have a sit down with her because he ended up picking her up and apparently threatened her.
The pastor threatened her? Over the car, or why?
Because she was using them. She told him she would tell. And he said, you can't do this to me.
How was he using her? Like they had a relationship or something going on, you mean?
I went through her phone.
Who's her pastor? What church she goes to?
Second Baptist, right there by the bus station.
Okay.
Across the street. And I went through her phone. She tussled with me about her phone and all this. She died on her phone. Kind of got in like a fetal position with all her knees in her hands and saw that I was a pastor and saw what he said. And, you know, she kind of just gave up. And gave her the phone. And all the time she was laughing. Grinning. When she gave me the phone, she was grinning and laughing. Because you know, okay, if I do make that accusation, she could have that reaction that she had.
Donovan, however, seemed oddly cooperative. He didn't ask for a lawyer, nor did he hesitate to answer their questions. He described in detail how he had stuffed her into a suitcase, transported her in his mother's van, and sank her body in the muddy depths of the creek. Despite his admission, investigators weren't willing to take everything at face value. It was possible that he was hiding key details or leaving out elements of the crime. They also needed physical evidence to support his claims. The next step was clear: recovering Aniya's body and verifying every part of Donovan's story.
It's a little bit sloped right there. Now, Donovan, did you have her on this side of the guardrail first? In a suitcase, or did you bring her all the way down here?
All the way down.
All the way down here? Okay, so you wheel her in the suitcase all the way down here? Okay. And you park back up by where the SUV is? And how do you where the white truck is? 10 feet that way. And how do you get her in the water? You just threw her in the suitcase into the water. Okay, and this is the right spot? Okay, where do you want these guys to go? Straight. Straight down?
Switch sides. The sun's not in my
camera. No problem.
We're on camera, guys. Here we.
Yep, we're on camera.
Suitcase. Evidence.
All right. Would you want to get it closer?
You guys open confirm already?
Yeah.
Which way turn around? I think all the way out, and then probably hand the rope back to someone in the back. Yep. I'll tie you off.
All right.
The first major breakthrough came when police followed Donovan's directions to Comstock Creek. A specialized search and recovery team, equipped with boats, sonar technology, and divers, combed the area. Hours passed before they finally located a large, heavy suitcase submerged in the water, weighed down by mud and debris. Inside, they found Aniya's lifeless body, just as Donovan had described. The discovery was heartbreaking, but critical. It meant they had irrefutable proof of the crime. Forensic pathologists conducted a thorough autopsy, which revealed multiple stab wounds and a deep slash across her throat, confirming homicide as the cause of death. The examination also contradicted some of Donovan's claims. While he insisted that he had attacked her in a moment of rage, the injuries suggested a prolonged, violent struggle. Some of the wounds were defensive, meaning Aniya had fought for her life. This evidence undermined any attempt at a self-defense claim and painted a picture of a premeditated killing. As the prosecution prepared for trial, a disturbing subplot emerged. Investigators uncovered that Donovan had made previous attempts to cover up the crime, including cleaning Aniya's apartment, disposing of evidence, and misleading her friends about her whereabouts. He had even tried to maintain the illusion that Aniya was still alive. In the days after her murder, he had used her phone to send messages to friends and family, possibly to buy himself time before suspicion fell on him. These details shattered any argument that this was a crime of passion committed in the heat of the moment.
Hello, I'm looking to speak with Pastor Strickland.
This is he.
Hi there, this is Sergeant Charles Trepa, Kalamazoo Public Safety. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you, sir?
Not too bad, sir. I got a voicemail message from Chief Boyce and saying that you had some questions about an automobile.
Yes, sir. One of the automobiles that was taken related to the Aniya Mack murder.
Yes, sir.
One of those vehicles belongs to my wife.
Okay.
And we are trying to recover it.
However, the story took another shocking turn when Pastor Strickland, the man whose messages had sparked Donovan's jealous rage, was exposed for unrelated criminal activity. Months after Aniya's murder, law enforcement uncovered disturbing allegations against him, revealing that he had been involved in crimes involving minors within his congregation. While he was never directly implicated in Aniya's case, the discovery of his crimes added another layer of betrayal to an already devastating story. A man who was supposed to be a leader in the community had been abusing his position of power for his own selfish, immoral desires. Strickland was later arrested and pleaded guilty in 2023 to charges related to and the exploitation of minors. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison, a sentence that many viewed as far too lenient given the nature of his crimes. His downfall, though separate from Aniya's murder, only deepened the tragedy surrounding the case, one that seemed to expose corruption, betrayal, and the hidden darkness lurking beneath the surface of seemingly normal lives.
We have video of the ending of a manhunt for a suspected murderer who escaped from the Kalamazoo County Jail.
His name's Donovan Lewis. He's now back in custody. He's charged with open murder in the June death of Aniya Mack. The two had been dating. He told police that he was jealous of her relationship with a local high-profile pastor. Police say that's why he killed her and then put her body in a suitcase.
While awaiting trial in Kalamazoo County Jail, Donovan shocked authorities once again by orchestrating a daring escape attempt. During recreational time, he took advantage of a brief lapse in security, scaling 2 15-foot fences topped with razor wire. He suffered deep cuts from the razor wire but managed to reach the outer perimeter before officers caught up to him just 30 minutes later. His escape attempt not only added additional criminal charges, but also revealed his willingness to go to extreme lengths to avoid facing justice. Facing overwhelming evidence, Donovan chose to accept a plea deal. Initially charged with first-degree murder, which carried a mandatory life sentence, he instead pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, reducing his sentence to 25 to 40 years in prison. The plea deal, though controversial, spared Aniya's family the agony of a lengthy trial and guaranteed that Donovan would be held accountable. During sentencing, Donovan finally spoke in court, expressing regret for his actions.
I can't imagine the hurt that I caused. I don't even know the beginning. I just want to say sorry to the family. That's all.
When I sentence you, Mr. Lewis, I balance the principles of punishment, rehabilitation, protection of society, as well as deterrence. Particularly, you being cooperative, taking full responsibility, not minimizing your role in this, and expressing a level of remorse. A decent education. There are a lot of good things here that you had developed over your life, Mr. Lewis, and you threw all of that out the window back on June 24th. Aniya Mack didn't deserve any of these things. She didn't deserve to be hit to begin with. She didn't deserve to be put unconscious. She didn't deserve to be stabbed and murdered. And her body didn't deserve to be treated less than garbage. And all of that happened because of you, nobody else.
Aniya's family delivered powerful victim impact statements describing the unbearable loss they suffered. The judge, while bound by the plea agreement, did not mince words. Before handing down the sentence, he told Donovan, "You took the life of a young woman who had everything ahead of her. No sentence I give you will ever undo that. But you will spend the next decades behind bars, and that is the justice you deserve." With the trial concluded, Donovan was led away in handcuffs, sentenced to decades in prison, but Aniya's family would never get her back. The justice system had played its role, but the emotional scars left behind would last forever. As Donovan Lewis was led away in handcuffs, sentenced to decades behind bars, the courtroom remained filled with an overwhelming sense of loss. Justice had been served in the legal sense, but for Aniya Mack's family and friends, no amount of prison time could bring her back.
How do you feel now with the sentence?
I feel good because my sister is okay with the sentence, and so I'm okay with it.
You spoke about forgiveness, not wanting to take pain for pain, but hoping that he can live with what he's done. Can you talk about that?
Well, he have to live with it for the rest of his life. You know, whether he was sincere with what he said in the courtroom or not, he has to live with it. And I hope he can. And I meant that. I haven't forgiven him. My sister, I haven't. And in time, I'm sure I will, but not now.
The murder of Aniya Mack was more than just another crime story. It was a sobering reminder of how quickly jealousy, insecurity, and possessiveness can turn into something deadly. It was a case that highlighted the hidden dangers of toxic relationships, the warning signs that so many victims ignore or rationalize, and the devastating consequences of ignoring them. Her story became a testament to the fact that every red flag matters. Every toxic relationship has the potential to turn deadly, and every life lost to domestic violence is one too many. Aniya Mack should still be here, and while justice was served in the legal sense, true justice would have been a world where Aniya was still alive, still pursuing her dreams, and still spreading joy to everyone who knew her. In her absence, those who loved her continued their mission to make sure that her death was not in vain and that her story could save others from the same fate. If you found this story informative and eye-opening, please like, share, and subscribe to help spread awareness about domestic violence and toxic relationships.
I don't know where we might have, what might have happened. And that's frightening in itself to think that it was somebody that would do something like that in your neighborhood.
It began like so many other missing person cases. A worried husband, a woman who failed to show up for work, and a frantic search for answers. But beneath the surface of what seemed like a tragic disappearance lay a horrifying truth, one that would expose a chilling act of betrayal. Jennifer Rothwell had everything to live for. She was intelligent, ambitious, and known for her kindness. She had worked hard to build a stable life, both in her career and in her marriage. But more than anything, she was about to embark on one of the most exciting journeys of her life, motherhood. At 6 weeks pregnant, she was filled with joy and anticipation. She had envisioned a future filled with baby showers, nursery preparations, and the warm embrace of a growing family. But Jennifer would never get to see that future. When investigators searched the home she shared with her husband, Bo Rothwell, they discovered something that made their blood run cold. Hidden among everyday household items was a handwritten pros and cons list, a list that, at first glance, seemed harmless. But as detectives read through its contents, they realized they had just uncovered something deeply disturbing. This was not an ordinary list of tasks or decisions. It was Bo's cold, calculated assessment of whether his wife and their unborn child should continue to be a part of his life. This case is not just about a disappearance or a tragic accident. It is about a chilling deception, a husband who hid his darkest intentions behind a mask of normalcy, and a betrayal so heinous that it shattered an entire family. This is the tragic case of Jennifer Rothwell. Born on November 20th, 1990 in Overland Park, Kansas, Jennifer Rothwell grew up in a loving and supportive family. She was raised by her parents, Robin and Mark von Hausen, alongside her siblings, William and Marissa. Jennifer was the type of person who left a lasting impact on everyone she met. Described as kind, intelligent, and full of life, she had an infectious energy that made her easy to be around. Jennifer was academically gifted, excelling in school from an early age. She attended Park Hill High School in Kansas City, Missouri, where she was known for her dedication to her studies. Her passion for learning led her to pursue a degree in chemical engineering at the University of Missouri, a field that required both intellect and perseverance. During her time at the university, Jennifer's life took a significant turn when she met Bo Rothwell. They were both chemical engineering students and were initially paired as lab partners in 2013. What started as an academic collaboration soon blossomed into a romantic relationship. Their bond grew quickly, and within 2 years, Bo proposed. Jennifer, deeply in love, accepted without hesitation. On September 26, 2015, Jennifer and Bo were married in what seemed like the beginning of a perfect life together. Jennifer was working as a process engineer at DuPont in St. Louis, and Bo had secured a position at Ambitech Engineering. By all outward appearances, they were a successful, happy couple with a bright future ahead. But beneath this seemingly perfect union, cracks had already begun to form. Cracks that Jennifer had no idea would soon bring her life to a violent and tragic end. On November 12, 2019, Jennifer failed to show up for work. This was completely out of character for her. She was reliable, punctual, and dedicated to her job. When her coworkers couldn't reach her, concern quickly grew. At home, Bo Rothwell reported his wife missing, claiming that he had last seen her the previous night. According to him, everything had been normal. Jennifer had spent the evening watching television before going to bed, but now she was gone without a trace. Bo insisted that he had no idea what had happened to her. Later that day, authorities discovered Jennifer's car abandoned a few miles away. Her phone was still inside, but Jennifer was nowhere to be found. This discovery raised immediate red flags. Jennifer, who was pregnant and always cautious, would not have willingly left her phone behind. And if she had left voluntarily, why hadn't she taken her car? While Bo went on social media, posting emotional pleas for Jennifer's safe return, investigators began analyzing his behavior. Something didn't sit right. His reactions seemed rehearsed. His concern felt forced. And when detectives requested permission to search his home, Bo refused and immediately hired a lawyer, a move that sent alarm bells ringing. With a search warrant in hand, detectives entered the Rothwell home, and what they found inside was nothing short of horrifying. In the basement, the carpet was soaked with bleach. The smell was overwhelming, almost suffocating. A fan was blowing at full speed, aimed directly at a section of the floor, as if someone had been desperately trying to dry something. The windows were wide open, despite the freezing temperatures outside. But the most chilling discovery was a large hole in the basement wall, as if something or someone had been violently smashed against it. Forensic testing revealed what detectives had already suspected. The stains on the basement carpet were blood. DNA tests later confirmed that it belonged to Jennifer. At that moment, the case shifted from a missing person investigation to something far more sinister. The most damning evidence, however, was a handwritten note found among Bo's belongings. It was a pros and cons list, a chilling analysis of whether he should leave Jennifer. Among the pros were things like a fresh start, better intimacy, and more respect. On the cons list, he had written disappointing family, financial strain, and having to move. Jennifer herself was nowhere on the list. As investigators pieced together the final days of Jennifer Rothwell's life, they uncovered a devastating truth. Bo had been living a double life. While Jennifer believed she was in a loving and committed marriage, Bo had been carrying on a secret affair. Phone records, deleted text messages, and online activity revealed that Bo had been involved with another woman for a significant period. Although the identity of his mistress was never publicly disclosed, their conversations made one thing clear. This was not just a meaningless fling. Their relationship was deep, ongoing, and full of discussions about a future together, one that did not include Jennifer. When Jennifer discovered she was pregnant in 2019, she was overjoyed. Having struggled with endometriosis, she and Bo had faced difficulties conceiving, and this pregnancy was something she had longed for. But for Bo, the news did not bring happiness. It sent him into a spiral of panic and resentment. Instead of sharing in his wife's excitement, he turned to his mistress, confiding in her about his distress. In one of their text exchanges, he expressed regret, frustration, and desperation over the pregnancy. Writing, "I feel trapped. Jennifer took a pregnancy test and it came back positive. Believe me, this is not what I want." His words lacked any trace of joy or support, and instead, they revealed the cold reality that Jennifer had no idea she was facing. Her own husband did not want the child she was carrying. Bo didn't just express disappointment, he began planning. In a shocking exchange with his mistress, he laid out 3 possible solutions to his situation. First, he could end the affair and stay with Jennifer, pretending as if nothing had happened. Second, he could confess to Jennifer about the affair and seek a divorce. And then there was the third option, wait and see if something happens to the pregnancy. The vagueness of that last statement was chilling. It suggested that Bo was hoping for a miscarriage, or even more disturbingly, was already contemplating a darker, more permanent solution. While Bo was texting his mistress, Jennifer was unknowingly reaching out for help in the only way she knew how. Investigators discovered that she had been searching the internet for advice on dealing with her husband's reaction to her pregnancy. She had typed out heartbreaking questions. What to do if your husband is upset that you're pregnant? And why would a husband not want a baby? These searches painted the tragic picture of a woman who could sense something was wrong, but did not yet realize just how much danger she was in. To Bo, Jennifer and the baby had become inconveniences standing in the way of his future with another woman. He could have chosen divorce. He could have walked away. But instead, he chose murder. As the search for Jennifer stretched into its 6th day, hope began to dwindle. Investigators, family members, and volunteers scoured the area, desperate for any sign of her. Her parents, Robin and Mark von Hausen, were beside themselves with worry, fearing the worst but holding on to the small chance that their daughter might still be alive. Meanwhile, Bo Rothwell, the man who had publicly begged for Jennifer's safe return, was now the prime suspect in her disappearance. His refusal to cooperate with police, his purchase of cleaning supplies before Jennifer went missing, and the disturbing pros and cons list all pointed to the grim reality that Jennifer had not simply vanished. Something terrible had happened to her. On November 18, 2019, investigators made a heartbreaking discovery. Off Highway 61 near Troy, Missouri, nearly 45 miles from the Rothwell home, search teams found a naked body covered in leaves and twigs. A plastic bag had been placed over the victim's head, as if someone had tried to suffocate her or obscure her identity. The body was positioned in a fetal position, vulnerable and abandoned, left to decay in the cold. The forensic team quickly transported the remains for identification, and the following morning, the devastating confirmation came. It was Jennifer Rothwell. She had been murdered in the most brutal way imaginable, her life snuffed out before she ever had the chance to experience motherhood. But the horror did not end there. The autopsy revealed a deeply disturbing detail. Jennifer had been beaten to death, suffering severe blunt force trauma to the head. The force of the blows was so extreme that medical examiners compared her injuries to those sustained in a high-speed car crash. The weapon used in the attack was determined to be a mallet, a heavy, blunt object capable of inflicting the kind of gruesome, crushing injuries that Jennifer had suffered. Investigators believed that Jennifer had been attacked in the basement of her own home, where the bleach-soaked carpet and gaping hole in the wall painted a terrifying picture of her final moments. It was there, in the place she was supposed to feel safest, that she had been ambushed, beaten mercilessly, and left to die. Even more tragic was the fact that Jennifer's unborn child had died with her. At just 6 weeks pregnant, she had been carrying a new life inside of her, a baby she had longed for and cherished. That life was also stolen in the most cold-blooded way, never getting the chance to take a first breath. The paternity test conducted later confirmed what Jennifer had never doubted. The baby was Bo's. This revelation destroyed the defense's later claim that Jennifer had provoked the attack by telling Bo that the baby wasn't his. The truth was simple. Bo never wanted the baby, and he never wanted Jennifer. When news of Jennifer's murder broke, the grief was unimaginable. Her parents, who had held on to hope that their daughter might return home, were shattered. Friends and loved ones who had known Jennifer as the bright, kind, and joyful person she was, struggled to come to terms with the senseless violence that had ended her life. The community that had rallied to find Jennifer was now mourning her. She had been killed by the very man who had vowed to love and protect her. With Jennifer's body found and the evidence overwhelmingly stacked against him, Bo Rothwell was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and abandoning a corpse. The man who had pretended to be a worried husband, who had participated in search efforts and posted on social media pleading for help, had known all along exactly where Jennifer was. because he was the one who put her there. As the details of Jennifer Rothwell's murder came to light, the case against Bo Rothwell became overwhelmingly clear. He had carefully planned out his actions, taken deliberate steps to cover up his crime, and feigned concern in an attempt to deceive the public. But now his mask was about to come off in front of a courtroom filled with people seeking justice for Jennifer. Bo's trial began in April 2022, nearly 3 years after Jennifer's murder. The prosecution built a strong and undeniable case against him, presenting the jury with damning evidence that his actions were premeditated. They highlighted the fact that Bo had purchased cleaning supplies, bleach and gloves just 1 day before Jennifer disappeared, making it clear that he had planned to dispose of evidence well in advance. The prosecution also introduced the handwritten pros and cons list found in Bo's belongings, perhaps the most chilling insight into his cold and calculated thought process. It showed that he had been deliberating whether to stay with Jennifer, listing reasons why he wanted to leave her, but failing to consider her life, her feelings, or even their unborn child. In addition, surveillance footage was presented showing Bo entering a store the night before Jennifer's disappearance and purchasing the exact cleaning products and tools later found in their home. This was further supported by the forensic evidence collected from their house, where police had discovered bloodstains, bleach-soaked carpet, and a hole in the basement wall. Every piece of evidence reinforced the prosecution's argument that Bo had not acted in the heat of the moment, but had carefully orchestrated the murder. Despite this overwhelming evidence, the defense attempted to argue that the killing was not premeditated. They claimed that Bo had confessed to Jennifer about his affair on the night of November 11th, which led to a heated argument between them. According to their version of events, Jennifer had allegedly provoked Bo by telling him that the baby was not his, causing him to snap in a fit of rage and attack her with a mallet. The defense tried to paint Bo as a man who had made a terrible mistake in the heat of passion, not a cold-blooded killer. However, this argument completely fell apart when the prosecution presented Jennifer's online search history. Just days before her murder, she had been searching for advice on how to handle a husband who was unhappy about a pregnancy. If Jennifer had truly been unfaithful, why would she be so concerned about her husband's reaction to the pregnancy? The paternity test results also debunked the defense's claims. Jennifer's baby was indeed Bo's, meaning his entire excuse for the attack was built on a blatant lie. Throughout the trial, Bo remained mostly emotionless, only breaking down in select moments, such as when his own text messages were read aloud. His attempts to cry in front of the jury felt hollow and insincere, especially when contrasted with the devastating testimonies from Jennifer's family. Her mother, Robin, spoke about the unbearable loss of her daughter and unborn grandchild, painting a heartbreaking picture of a family forever shattered by Bo's selfish actions. After weeks of deliberation, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. On April 28, 2022, Bo Rothwell was found guilty of first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and abandoning a corpse. His conviction meant that he would not be eligible for parole, ensuring that he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. On July 8, 2022, Bo appeared in court for his sentencing. He was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole for Jennifer's murder, plus 4 additional years for tampering with evidence and abandoning her body, sentences that would be served concurrently. Before he was taken away, Bo addressed Jennifer's family, offering a weak and shallow apology. He claimed that he thought about Jennifer every day and that she was his best friend. His words rang hollow in the courtroom. Best friends don't betray, cheat, and kill. Best friends don't weigh their partner's lives on a pros and cons list and choose murder as a way out. Jennifer's family remained strong, but their grief was immeasurable. Her mother, Robin, later stated, "We thought we would have more than 28 years with her. Gone are the moments of joy with friends and relatives."
A lot of my friends, they're like, "What are you doing?" And things like that. You didn't know her. And I don't look or feel it like that. I care. And a lot of people do. I know a lot of people do, but we're not all the same. We don't express it the same way.
Jennifer's life had been stolen in the most brutal and heartless way possible, and no prison sentence would ever bring her back. Although justice had been served, Jennifer's story remains a tragic reminder of the darkest sides of human nature. A woman full of love and kindness, excited to be a mother, had been betrayed and murdered by the person she trusted the most. Jennifer Rothwell had so much to look forward to. She had spent years building a life she was proud of, excelling in her career, fostering deep relationships with friends and family, and nurturing the love she thought would last forever. At 28 years old, she was about to embark on one of life's most beautiful journeys: motherhood. She had dreamed of holding her baby in her arms, of building a future filled with love, laughter, and family. But in a single moment of cruelty, all of that was stolen from her. She had no idea that the man she had chosen to spend her life with, the man she trusted, the man she loved, was capable of such betrayal. While she was excitedly planning for their child's future, Bo Rothwell was calculating how to erase her from his own. Jennifer's pregnancy should have been a moment of joy, a time for celebration, but instead, it became the very thing that sealed her fate. Her murder was brutal, senseless, and unforgivable. She was attacked in the home she had built with her husband, in a place she should have been safe. She wasn't given a chance to fight, to run, to plead for her life. Instead, she was beaten so violently that forensic experts compared her injuries to those of a high-speed car accident. She had suffered at the hands of someone who was supposed to protect her. Her unborn child, whose life had just begun, never got the chance to take a first breath, to feel the warmth of a mother's embrace, to grow up in the world Jennifer had dreamed of creating. In an instant, 2 innocent lives were extinguished, not because of an accident, not because of a tragic twist of fate, but because of selfishness, cruelty, and a complete lack of remorse. For Jennifer's parents, the pain of losing their daughter is something they will carry for the rest of their lives. They were robbed of seeing her grow old, of watching her experience the joys of motherhood, of hearing her laugh, of celebrating holidays and milestones together. No parent should ever have to bury their child, let alone in such a violent and heart-wrenching way. Her mother, Robin, later expressed the family's devastation in a statement. "We thought we would have more than 28 years with her. Gone are the moments of joy with friends and relatives." Jennifer's story is not just about one tragic murder. It is about the horrific reality that sometimes the greatest danger comes from the ones we trust the most. It is about the warning signs that go unnoticed, the secret lives people hide behind smiles, and the unimaginable betrayal that can come from the closest of relationships. This case serves as a chilling reminder that true evil does not always appear in the form of a stranger in the night. Sometimes it sleeps beside you. May Jennifer and her unborn baby rest in peace. May her story continue to remind us to protect, believe, and support those who may be in danger, even when the threat is the one standing closest to them. If you found Jennifer's story heartbreaking and important, please consider liking this video to help spread awareness about domestic violence and the dangers that often go unnoticed. Every interaction helps ensure that more people hear Jennifer's story, keeping her memory alive and preventing tragedies like this from happening again. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more in-depth true crime cases that bring justice and awareness to victims who deserve to be remembered. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update, and join our community in advocating for truth, justice, and safety for all. Your support helps keep stories like Jennifer's alive, ensuring that victims are never forgotten, that their stories are told, and that justice is always pursued. Thank you for watching, for remembering Jennifer, and for standing up for those who no longer have a voice. Until next time, stay safe.
And headstrong even as a kid, so my mom had her work cut out.
And because was never an answer. She'd tell you, that's not an answer, Mom. Why?
Because I wanted to know why. And because I said so, that's not an answer.
Ashley Wallace's life was nearly stolen by the one person she should have been able to trust the most, her own mother.
At first, we really didn't like him.
Imagine being poisoned by the woman who once held you as a child, only to survive, and then discover that your mother might have been responsible for your father's death as well.
He was my best friend. Me and her could just sit out and have hour-long conversations, about anything. Everything and anything.
Was it a desperate act of survival or something much darker? Stay with us as we unravel the sinister events that tore this family apart and the question that still remains.
I was there for a half hour with him by myself, not knowing that if I had known what I know now, he wouldn't be. I could have helped him.
How could a mother try to kill her own child? Born Stacy Daniels on July 24, 1967 in Clay, New York, she grew up with her parents, Jerry Daniels and Judy Eaton. At 17, she met Michael Wallace, the man who would become her first husband. They tied the knot in 1990, and together they had two daughters, Ashley, born in 1988, and Bree, born in 1991. While Castor worked as an ambulance dispatcher, Wallace worked nights as a mechanic. Though their lives were busy, they struggled financially and their relationship slowly unraveled. One of the key issues was Wallace's close bond with Bree, the younger daughter. Stacy made up for that by becoming extra close to Ashley, her eldest, who she treated more like a best friend than a daughter. Despite the bonds with their children, their marriage began to show cracks. Rumors of infidelity on both sides only deepened the divide between them. People who knew Stacy thought she adored Michael. She described him as the life of the party, someone always willing to help others. Yet, according to Stacy, their marriage was strained because of Wallace's battle with drugs and alcohol, which haunted him for years. Their work schedules also kept them apart, with Stacy working days and Michael working nights. But beneath the surface of this struggling marriage, something far darker was brewing, setting the stage for a chilling series of events that would shock everyone. On January 11, 2000, Stacy Castor's first husband, Michael Wallace, passed away under strange circumstances. A former friend of Stacy had mentioned that she had been considering divorce around the time Wallace fell ill in the winter of 1999. Wallace sought medical help, and doctors suggested he might have an inner ear disorder. However, a few weeks later, he was found unresponsive on the couch at home and was declared dead at the hospital.
I'm home, and I called my mom to tell her that I was home, and he was laying on the couch. I got off the phone with her, and I turned the TV on. I remember him making this funny noise. He put his arm up, then he put his arm back down, and that was the last time that he moved. I left to go get my sister, and I got home, and when I got home, Stacy had just got home too because she was going to take my dad to the doctor's. I remember I was standing right behind her, and when I looked in, my dad's feet were this purple color.
Some believed an autopsy should have been conducted on a seemingly healthy man who suddenly died. However, when doctors told Stacy that it appeared to be a heart attack, she accepted that explanation without question. After Wallace's death at just 38 years old, Stacy collected a life insurance payout of $55,000. A few years later, on August 16, 2003, Stacy married her second husband, David Castor, whom she had met through her boss in 2001. David, a man dedicated to his work and passionate about outdoor activities like snowmobiling and four-wheeling, became a source of strength and stability for Stacy. She described him as supportive and reliable, qualities she valued in him. Both David and Stacy brought children from their previous marriages into the relationship. David had an adult son, David Jr., while Stacy had her two daughters, Ashley and Bree. However, her daughters weren't pleased with their mother's new marriage. They felt uneasy about the idea of someone taking their father's place, and the dynamic between David and Stacy's children was tense. David was strict and expected them to follow his rules without question, but being Stacy's children, they often resisted his authority. This created a difficult atmosphere within the newly blended family, laying the groundwork for more trouble ahead.
First, we really didn't like him. He said he didn't want to be our father and he didn't want any part of being a father. He already had his kids and he didn't want more.
David was miserable. My mom acted miserable. The only time they were happy is when they weren't around me and my sister.
On August 22, 2005, Stacy made a panicked call to 911, reporting that her husband, David Castor, hadn't shown up for work. She claimed the last time she spoke to him was early Sunday morning at 5 a.m. when he locked her out of the bedroom after an argument.
Police communications, can I help you?
My name is Stacy Castor. My husband has locked himself in our bedroom for the last day. I'm just getting a little concerned because I haven't talked to him since 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday when he locked me out of the bedroom.
Has he ever mentioned hurting himself or harming himself? Or
Friday night when we were arguing, he told me to get out, take my kids and get out. I could leave. And then 5 minutes later, he said if I left, he would make me sorry. I would be sorry if I ever left him.
okay, don't cry. We're gonna check on him, make sure he's okay. Maybe he's depressed. Are you guys going through something right now?
Well, his father died a month ago, and he's been kind of weird acting the last month.
According to Stacy, David had gotten upset, taken a bottle of Southern Comfort, and locked himself in the bedroom, refusing to come out. She assumed he had been drinking heavily and was simply sleeping it off. She even told her friend, Danny Coleman, that when she pressed her ear to the door, she could hear him breathing. When police arrived and forced open the bedroom door, they found David Castor dead from what appeared to be a self-murder. On the nightstand, they discovered 2 glasses, one containing antifreeze. Beneath the bed, they found an open bottle of antifreeze. In the kitchen, a turkey baster with the smell of alcohol was found in the trash, raising suspicions about what had really happened. Stacy told detectives that David had been struggling with depression due to the recent loss of his father and suggested that his heavy drinking and apparent self-murder were connected to his grief. However, those who knew David, including his ex-wife, Janice Poisson Farmer, did not believe he would take his own life. Detective Dominic Spinelli remained unconvinced by the self-destruction theory and launched a 2-year investigation. He found that David's will left everything to Stacy and her 2 daughters, with nothing going to his own son, David Jr., which raised more questions. Spinelli also noticed similarities between David's death and the sudden passing of Stacy's first husband, Michael Wallace. Further digging revealed that Wallace had no serious health issues, apart from a hernia. With rising suspicions that both men were poisoned with antifreeze, known for its painful and lethal effects, investigators decided to exhume Wallace's body to check for the signature crystals in his organs that were caused by antifreeze poisoning. On September 5, 2007, Michael Wallace's body was exhumed to uncover the truth behind his sudden death. The autopsy results were chilling. Sergeant Michael Norton of the Onondaga County Sheriff's Office recalled the medical examiner telling him that Wallace was loaded with crystals, a clear sign of antifreeze poisoning. Detective Spinelli, who had been investigating the deaths, realized this wasn't just a coincidence. He was convinced that both Michael Wallace and David Castor had been murdered, and Stacy Castor was likely responsible for both deaths. Police ramped up their investigation. They placed surveillance cameras at Stacy's home and at the cemetery where her husbands were buried. They also wiretapped her phone, and through one of these calls, they learned that Stacy had visited the cemetery shortly after Michael Wallace's body had been exhumed. On September 7, 2007, Stacy was brought in for questioning. During the interview, she made a suspicious slip-up. Detective Spinelli asked her which glass she had used to pour cranberry juice for her husband. Stacy responded, "Well, when I poured the antifreeze, before quickly correcting herself to say, "I mean, the cranberry juice." Spinelli immediately picked up on the mistake, but Stacy became defensive, accusing him of trying to frame her, and abruptly ended the interview. Just days later, on September 12, 2007, a new twist emerged. Ashley Wallace, Stacy's daughter, had just started her first day of college when detectives visited her with devastating news. Her father, Michael Wallace, had been poisoned with antifreeze. Shaken, Ashley called her mother, and police wiretaps captured their conversation. Stacy asked Ashley about what the detectives had told her, and then suggested they share a drink to unwind after a tough day. Ashley, trusting her mother, accepted the drink. But something was wrong. Ashley began to feel drowsy and eventually passed out, winding up unconscious in her bedroom. Unknown to her, this was another attempt by Stacy to cover her tracks. On September 13, 2007, Ashley Wallace woke up with a hangover after drinking with her mother the previous night. Despite feeling unwell, she went to school as usual. When she returned home, Stacy Castor suggested they celebrate Ashley's upcoming 21st birthday early by drinking again. Ashley agreed, and her mother prepared another cocktail for her. According to former detective Valerie Brogan, Stacy's plan seemed odd from the start. The drink didn't taste good, and Ashley remembered her mother encouraging her to use a straw and drink quickly. telling her to push the straw to the back of her throat to avoid the bad taste. Ashley followed her mother's instructions, but soon felt overwhelmingly tired and went to lay down. By this point, Stacy Castor was panicking. The police were closing in on her after exhuming Michael Wallace's body and finding antifreeze traces. Desperate to shift the blame, Stacy hatched a plan to frame her own daughter, Ashley, for the murders of both her father, Michael Wallace, and her stepfather, David Castor. Earlier that week, Ashley had been questioned by investigators at her college about her father's death, and they informed her that he had been poisoned. Shocked and upset, she had called her mother, who then invited her over to unwind with drinks. The following day, after their second drinking session, Ashley's younger sister Bree found her unconscious in bed. Alarmed, Bree insisted that help be called. Stacy made the 911 call, but before paramedics arrived, a mysterious self-murder note appeared by Ashley's side. The note, supposedly written by Ashley, confessed to the murders of both her father and stepfather. Stacy quickly took the note and handed it to the paramedics, trying to paint the picture of a guilt-ridden daughter. But this attempt to divert suspicion would soon crumble as investigators dug deeper into the case. Tests revealed that Ashley had potentially fatal levels of painkillers in her system. She was dangerously close to death and would have likely died if she hadn't been rushed to the hospital just in time. When Ashley regained consciousness, investigators questioned her about the alleged self-destruction note and her father's murder. Confused, she explained that the last thing she remembered was her mother giving her a drink, a situation that had never happened before. Ashley was adamant that she didn't write the note and had no idea why the police were questioning her about the deaths of her father and stepfather. And finally, after 2 years of building their case, investigators finally arrested Stacy Castor in 2007. She was charged with second-degree murder for the death of her second husband, David Castor, and for attempting to kill and frame her own daughter, Ashley. During the trial, prosecutors argued that the so-called self-murder note, which was supposedly written by Ashley, was actually Stacy's creation. At the time of her father, Michael Wallace's death, Ashley had only been 12 years old. On the witness stand, she firmly denied any involvement in either of the murders and insisted that she had never written the note. Onondaga County District Attorney William Fitzpatrick and his team built a compelling case. They pointed out that David Castor's self-murder never made sense, as his fingerprints weren't found on the glass or the antifreeze container. Further investigation revealed a turkey baster in the kitchen trash containing traces of ethylene glycol, the toxic substance found in antifreeze, along with David's DNA. Prosecutors argued that this was proof Stacy had force-fed David the antifreeze. To support their case, the prosecutors pointed to the evolution of David's illness, suggesting Stacy had administered the poison over time, using the bastard to make his death appear self-inflicted. She even claimed David had gotten the idea from watching a news report about another woman, Lynn Turner, who had poisoned her lovers using antifreeze. Prosecutors presented strong evidence that antifreeze poisoning could be identified by the growth of calcium oxalate crystals in the kidneys, a key detail that showed up in the autopsies of both Michael Wallace and David Castor. These crystals are a clear sign of antifreeze ingestion, linking both deaths to poisoning. Along with this technical proof, prosecutors pointed to money as a major motive for Stacy Castor's actions. They revealed that she had changed David's will to cut out his son from his inheritance, a move that meant more money for herself and her daughters. Castor was not only after the insurance payouts, but was also trying to secure his estate for her own benefit. Took the stand, recounting how her mother had convinced her to drink the strange, bitter-tasting drink just before her near-death experience. She explained that she trusted her mother, which was why she drank it, despite how bad it tasted. Ashley maintained her innocence, both in the murders and in writing the self-murder note, firmly denying any involvement in the tragic events. Castor's defense team, attorneys Charles Keller and Todd Smith, focused on creating doubt about her involvement in the murders. Their strategy was to poke holes in Ashley's version of events and suggest that Ashley, who was just 11 years old at the time of her father's death, could have been capable of murder. They tried to argue that Ashley might have had a motive due to Wallace's favoritism toward her younger sister Bree, and they suggested jealousy could have driven her to commit such a terrible act. For David's death, they brought up the troubled relationship between him and Ashley as evidence that the two didn't get along well. Castor's mother even believed that her granddaughter Ashley was guilty of the murders. In a final attempt to convince the jury of her innocence, Castor herself took the stand. During cross-examination, Onondaga County District Attorney grilled Castor, pointing out flaws in her version of events. Castor insisted that it was Ashley who had killed Wallace and David, though she couldn't offer a clear motive, other than suggesting that Ashley might have had mental health issues.
Mrs. Castor, in the 3 letters that we have in evidence here that you wrote to Lynn Pulaski, how many times do you recall referring to your daughter Ashley?
Probably a lot.
And how many times in those letters did you tell Lynn that you still love your daughter Ashley?
I don't know.
How about not one single time? Does that sound correct?
Could be.
Could be. Could be that you referred to her very negatively, didn't you?
I'm sure I did.
That's right, because she killed, after all, your 2 husbands, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
She did. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about a list of reasons why Ashley killed. We'll start with Michael Wallace, your own father. If you had to put these on a list for the jury, let's start with reason number 1.
I don't know.
No, I'll overrule. Go ahead.
I can't give you a reason why she would do it.
So if I give you 10 reasons, we're going to start at number 1, and number 1 is I don't know. Did anybody in the year 2000 know Ashley Wallace better than you?
Probably not.
Did anybody in the year 2005 know Ashley Wallace better than you?
Probably not.
And you, as you just said, have been in jail for 16 months for a crime you claim you didn't commit, correct?
That's true.
And your answer to this jury, when I ask you to give them the number 1 reason why Ashley Wallace killed her own father with antifreeze and then stuffed rat poison down his throat, your answer is, I don't know. Correct?
That's correct.
Fitzpatrick was quick to counter, pointing out that Castor had never sought therapy for Ashley and that Ashley had shown no signs of mental illness. He also asked why, after working for an ambulance company for years, Castor had waited 17 hours to get Ashley help when she was seriously ill. Fitzpatrick noted how Castor had dismissed David's condition, saying he looked okay even though he was vomiting and struggling to stand. He questioned how any mother who had lost 2 husbands to poisoning would fail to seek medical help for her own daughter in a similar situation. The back and forth between Fitzpatrick and Castor grew heated, with Fitzpatrick raising his voice and even shouting at her. Keller, Castor's attorney, frequently objected, at one point requesting a mistrial due to the intensity of the cross-examination. Prosecutors introduced another critical piece of evidence during the trial, the typing sounds on police wiretaps. These sounds were heard while Castor was talking to a friend on the phone, even though she denied remembering using her computer that day. The prosecution argued that these sounds matched the sound of Castor typing one of several drafts of the self-murder note meant to frame her daughter, Ashley. Ashley had already testified that she had seen her mother working on the computer, which Castor had tried to hide from her.
A question for you. Wednesday night and Wednesday afternoon, were you on the computer at any time during that day?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember.
You were asked that question, then your lawyer asked you like a couple of questions later, do you remember typing that day? And you said, no, absolutely not. How is it that you're certain you weren't typing at the keyboard when you can't even remember whether or not you were at the computer?
Well, if I wasn't at the computer, I couldn't be typing.
Well, you didn't say you weren't at the computer. You said you weren't sure if you were at the computer. How can you be not sure whether or not you were at the computer, but you're certain that you weren't typing? How can that be?
I answered the question he asked me.
I know you answered the question. That's not answering the question I asked you. How can you be sure that you weren't typing, but not sure if you were at the computer? Don't you type when you're at the computer?
Yeah.
You can't operate the computer without doing a little of this stuff, right?
True.
Okay. So yesterday you said, in response to this question, were you at the computer on Wednesday? You said, I really don't know. I can't remember, right?
Yes.
And then he asked you, did you type anything that day? And you said, absolutely not.
District Attorney Fitzpatrick suggested that this was the day Castor wrote the note, which bore her fingerprints but not Ashley's, in an effort to pin the murders on her daughter. He highlighted a key detail. The word antifreeze was written as Anti-free in 4 different places within the note, matching the slip of the tongue Castor made during an interview when she said anti-free. Castor had claimed she was simply cutting herself off mid-sentence because she intended to say something else.
Took this picture of one like it out of my folder, and I showed it to Stacy and said I had a question for you. Stacy, regarding these glasses that were on top of the nightstand next to David's bed, you told us earlier that you had gotten David some cranberry juice and some water. By looking at the photo, would you be able to tell me which glass it was that you brought into David? Stacy leaned into the photo, was looking at it, at which time she said, when I poured the antifreeze, the cranberry juice, you're confusing me, you're jumping all over the place. At that point I said, Stacy, I simply asked you one question. I didn't jump all over, it was just one question, if you know which glass it was. At that point, the interview continued.
When she said to you, when I poured the anti-free, are you certain it was anti-free and not anti-freeze with a Z?
It was anti-free, absolutely positive.
Thank you very much, Detective.
The real victims here were Michael, David, and Ashley. And at the very least, we can be thankful that Ashley survived her mother's homicide attempt. And on February 5th, 2009, after 4 days of jury deliberation, Stacy was found guilty on 1 count of second-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and 1 count of forging a will.
Good morning. Good morning. All right, Ms. Everly, I have your note that the jury's reached a verdict. If you'd stand for a moment. On indictment number 2007-1271-1, the people of the state of New York versus Stacy R. Castor, as to count number 1, murder in the second degree, what is the verdict? Guilty. On count 2, attempted murder in the second degree, what's the verdict? Guilty. And on count 3, offering a false instrument in the first degree, what is the jury's verdict? Guilty. All right. Do you wish the jury poll, Bill? Chuck?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Kelly, go ahead.
Castor's defense team tried to counter this by bringing in a pharmaceutical expert to challenge the prosecution's argument that Castor had drugged Ashley 17 hours before she was taken to the hospital. However, on February 5th, 2009, the jury found Castor guilty of second-degree murder for poisoning her husband, David, and attempted second-degree murder for overdosing Ashley. When the verdict was read, Castor closed her eyes and remained silent. Her lawyer, Charles Keller, announced that they would appeal the decision, including challenging the admission of evidence related to Wallace's death, for which Castor had not been charged. On March 5th, 2009, during Stacy Castor's sentencing, prosecutor Christine Garvey made a powerful statement to Judge Fahey, urging him to impose the maximum consecutive sentences due to the extreme severeness of David's death. Garvey described Castor as cold, calculating, and without any emotion for what she had done. She criticized how Castor had partied with friends in her backyard, acting like nothing was wrong, while her daughter Ashley lay comatose in her bedroom. Human life is sacred, Garvey continued, but Stacy Castor places no value on human life, not even her own flesh and blood. To Stacy Castor, human beings are disposable. David's son, who Castor had cheated out of his inheritance, also spoke in court. He begged Judge Fahey to press the harshest punishment on Castor. Judge Fahey, visibly shaken by the case, told Castor that he had never seen a parent try to murder their own child to cover up the crime they had committed. He declared that Castor was in a class all by herself. He sentenced her to the maximum term of 25 years to life for the murder of her husband, David. Additionally, she received another 25 years for attempting to murder Ashley. For forging David's will to exclude his son from the inheritance, Judge Fahey added an extra sentence of 16 months to 4 years in prison.
Right, Ms. Everly, I have your note that the jury's reached a verdict. If you'd stand for a moment. On indictment number 2007-1271-1, the people of the state of New York versus Stacy R. Castor, as to count number 1, murder in the second degree, what is the verdict? On count 2, attempted murder in the second degree, what's the verdict? Guilty. And on count 3, offering a false instrument in the first degree, what is the jury's verdict? Guilty. All right. Do you wish the jury poll, Bill? Chuck?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Kelly, go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as stated through your foreperson,
We have found the defendant guilty of all 3 counts in the indictment. Juror number 1, is that your verdict? Yes. Juror number 2?
Yes.
Juror number 3? Yes. Juror number 4? Yes. Juror number 5? Yes. Juror number 6? Yes. Juror number 7? Yes. Juror number 8?
Yes.
Juror number 9?
Yes.
Juror number 10? Yes. Juror number 11? Yes. And juror number 12? Yes. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of both parties and myself and the people of Onondaga County, I want to take this opportunity to thank you and you folks who are alternates, your patience too over the last several days when you haven't been able to deliberate. I'm very, very grateful for your patience and your understanding also. Your jury service is over. You're certainly free to go with our thanks. You're free to talk to anybody about the case that you wish, whether it be the lawyers, the press, each other, your families. But I want to thank you really with very sincerely, and I hope stay warm.
Thank you, ladies. I'd like 2 minutes, Jack, if you don't mind.
With her sentencing complete, Castor's fate was sealed, and she was left to face the long years ahead behind bars. The trial lasted for 4 intense weeks, during which Ashley Wallace took the stand to speak about the impact her mother had on her life. With tears in her eyes, Ashley told the judge that she hated her mother for ruining so many people's lives. Yet despite her anger, she still expressed love for the bond they once shared. "I never knew what hate was until now," Ashley confessed.
The biggest question I ask is why? Why did she do these things? I know that's probably never going to be answered. There are so many things that she has ruined. She'll never be able to see Bree graduate. My father will never take me down the aisle. She'll never get to see her grandchildren. All those things she took away from me. She killed 2 people and tried to kill me and blame it on me and blame me for the other deaths. That bothers me so much. I had to pretend for a year that everything was okay, that nothing was bothering me, even though I was worried about the trial and worried whether the jury would believe me. I hate my mother for ruining so many people's lives. I didn't even know why she did it. What gave her the right to play God with people? And I hate her for having me be the one that found my dad, just like her for having Bree found me. I never knew what hate was until now. Even though I do hate her, I still love her at the same time. That bothers me. It's so confusing. How can you hate someone and love them at the same time?
She went on to say that she wished her mother would apologize for everything she had done, especially the lies. "As horrible as it makes me feel, this is goodbye, Mom," Ashley said.
I have a 3.9 GPA and still she tried to make me look stupid. But Mr. Fitzpatrick made her look stupid with her lies. I hate how she made people choose side in our family and with our friends. Bree and I are children. People are supposed to stand up for us. But she's an adult and that is the decision she made. I think about this at night and I can't even imagine what's going through her head. All the things that she can't do. I had all these fears about if the jury hadn't believed me. What if she got out and tried to hurt me again? Or what if she tried to hurt my sister? I didn't kill anyone and I didn't try to kill myself. I would never leave my sister or Matt. I just don't understand how you can say you love someone and in the next breath try to kill them. I wish she had told me what was going on. She was my best friend and she took that all away just because she got scared. Well, I was scared too when I was in the hospital all by myself and I wanted my mom. But she was the one that did this. I just want to sleep one night without thinking about this. I'm not an angry person and I hate being mad at her. I want to forgive her, but I'm not sure if I can. I just hope God can forgive her. She has to listen to me this time. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye, and this will be the last time I get a chance. As horrible as it makes me feel, this is goodbye, Mom. As hard as you tried, I survived, and I will survive because now I'm surrounded by people that love me. I'm going to do good things in this world, despite making me, in every sense of the word, an orphan. Thank you, Judge Fahey, for letting me express my feelings.
The weight of Ashley's words remained in the courtroom, showing the complex emotions that came with being betrayed by someone so close. Ashley's statement made it clear that, despite the pain and betrayal, she had found strength in her survival and in the love and support of others. Prosecutor William Fitzpatrick informed the court that according to New York sentencing guidelines, Stacy Castor would have to serve more than 51 years before she could be considered for parole. Given her age, that effectively meant she would spend the rest of her life in prison. Despite the overwhelming evidence against her, Castor continued to maintain her innocence. In a 2009 interview with Muir, she adamantly declared, "I did not kill Michael Wallace, I did not kill David Castor, and I did not try to kill my daughter, period. And I will never say that I did, ever." Her words, however, did little to change the fact that her crimes had shattered so many lives. Ashley Wallace said that her mother had once been her best friend, but that she had taken all of that away. She expressed that she would have done anything for her mother, but her mother had chosen to try and kill her instead. Stacy Castor, now identified as New York Department of Corrections inmate number 09G0209, was placed in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for women in Bedford Hills, New York. Even with credit for time served, her earliest possible release date was June 15, 2055, which was just over a month before her 88th birthday. This date seemed to mark the harsh reality of her crimes and the deep impact she had caused. In April 2009, a 2-hour 2020 special aired on ABC News, which covered Castor's trial. During the media coverage, she was often referred to as the Black Widow, a nickname previously given to Lynn Turner, who was also convicted of poisoning her partners. In the special, Ashley admitted that she still did not understand how her mother, or any mother for that matter, could try to kill her own child. It was a question that had also haunted the public. How could someone so close, so trusted, betray their own child in such a way? Despite the overwhelming evidence, Castor maintained her innocence, stating that she was shocked by the verdict. She claimed that Ashley had brought this situation on herself and suggested that both of them knew what had happened. Nevertheless, she did express some sympathy for her other daughter, Bree, and claimed that some family members still supported her. Bree, like her sister Ashley, had not spoken to Castor after the trial. She acknowledged that although losing her mother was difficult, she was relieved that the verdict had found Castor guilty, as they all knew she was guilty. Ashley, too, expressed that she would have done anything for her mother, but instead, her mother had tried to kill her. ABC interviewed forensic psychiatrist Dr. James Knoll about the case, and he addressed viewers' questions via video on April 23, 2009, and through site comments on April 27, 2009. He pointed out that most self-murder notes tend to focus on themes of remorse, with the writer expressing an inability to go on with life. However, the note that was supposedly written by Ashley focused instead on removing blame from Castor. Knoll noted that this theme appeared 14 times within the note, which led him to believe that Castor would never admit to guilt. He explained that individuals like Castor, who are guilty of such crimes, often follow the code of deny, deny, deny until the very end. Castor's story was adapted into a Lifetime television film titled Poisoned Love, The Stacy Castor Story. The film, part of the Ripped from the Headlines series, premiered on February 1, 2020. Nia Vardalos portrayed Castor in the film, which retold the chilling events surrounding her crimes. Stacy Castor was found dead in her cell on June 11, 2016. At first, it wasn't clear how she had died, and her death was listed as undetermined. However, the DA's office later confirmed that she had died of a heart attack, with no signs of foul play or ended her own life. She was only 48 years old and had never seen her daughters again after the trial. What would you do if you found out someone you loved tried to harm you? Do you think Ashley will ever find closure after everything she's been through? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys soon.
Kevin Bacon was 25 years old. His parents report him missing because he had not shown up for Christmas brunch.
There was one person in particular that Kevin had been communicating with.
They were looking to have a date and have a consensual sexual encounter.
Kevin decided to meet someone he'd connected with on the dating app Grindr. What began as a simple encounter with a stranger would end in a horrific crime that shocked the nation. The shocking discovery that followed, and the questions it raises about safety, mental health, and justice. Kevin Bacon was a 25-year-old from Schwartz Creek, Michigan. He was born in 1994 and grew up as a bright and charismatic young man. He was known for his humor, his kind heart, and his love for making people feel good about themselves.
Kevin was just one of my truest, closest friends that I ever had. He was just very vibrant, and he always had an opinion about everything.
Kevin wasn't just any ordinary young man. He had a passion for hairdressing and had graduated from Sharp's Hair Academy. By 2019, he was working at a salon in his hometown. He loved his job, and his clients adored him for his creativity and warmth. He was close to his family, his parents, Carl and Pamela, and his sister, Jennifer. They meant the world to him. Kevin also had a lot of friends and even more pets.
Something I always admired about Kevin is he was never afraid to express himself. He was not afraid to be this big, bald man with a pink polo and a purse and his nails done.
He loved cats and dogs, and his home was filled with their playful energy. But like many people, Kevin faced challenges. He struggled with self-esteem, body image, and depression. Despite these struggles, he dreamed of bigger things. Kevin hoped to move to Chicago one day, leaving his small town behind for a brighter future. On December 24th, 2019, Kevin was looking forward to the holidays. He worked at the salon that day, doing his mom's and sister's hair for Christmas. Afterward, Kevin decided to spend the evening meeting someone he'd connected with on a dating app called Grindr. Kevin lived with his best friend and roommate, Michelle. Before leaving the house, he told Michelle he'd be back later that night. It was supposed to be a casual meetup, but this would be the last time anyone saw Kevin alive. When Kevin didn't show up for Christmas breakfast the next morning, his family immediately knew something was wrong. Kevin was someone who cherished family traditions, especially during the holidays. Missing breakfast without any explanation was entirely out of character for him. His parents, Carl and Pamela, tried calling and messaging him, but there was no response. As the hours passed, their concern turned into fear. By December 26th, Kevin's family reported him missing to the police. They explained that he had gone out on Christmas Eve after using a dating app, but hadn't returned. His friends and family began reaching out to anyone who might have seen him. His roommate, Michelle, shared that he had left the house that evening, promising to come back later. The search for Kevin soon led to a worrying discovery. His car was found abandoned in the Schwartz Creek area, not far from his home. Inside the car, police found his wallet, phone, and clothing. This was a troubling sign. Kevin hadn't packed any extra clothes before leaving, and it didn't make sense for him to leave those items behind. Even more alarming was that his phone was still logged into the Grindr app. This suggested he hadn't planned to leave for long or go anywhere far. The family's fears deepened. Kevin wasn't the type to disappear without letting anyone know, and leaving his personal belongings behind was completely unlike him. The more they learned, the more they suspected something terrible had happened. His family, friends, and local authorities began organizing searches and sharing Kevin's photo and information online, hoping someone might have seen him. Sadly, the reality was far worse than they could have imagined. Investigators looked through Kevin's phone, which was still logged into the dating app Grindr. From the app's messages, they found that Kevin had been talking to a man named Mark Latunsky, who lived about 20 minutes away in Bennington Township.
So Kevin's phone was handed over to the Michigan State Police Computer Crimes Lab. And on the phone, they found a chat log from a mobile dating app.
Mark Latunsky was a 50-year-old man with a complicated past. He had a history of severe mental health problems, including schizophrenia and depression.
We learned he was a 50-year-old divorced male. He was known to run different online sex forums, almost like a male escort type scenario.
Over the years, Mark had been in and out of mental health facilities, but he refused to take medication consistently. Mark also had a strange and disturbing lifestyle. He was deeply involved in BDM, a lifestyle involving bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, but his interests often crossed into dangerous territory. On December 27, 2019, police followed the trail of clues from Kevin's phone records to the home of Mark Latunsky in Bennington Township, Michigan.
We just made a silent approach. We had knocked. Mark Latunsky answered, and we'd explained to him we were investigating a missing persons complaint with Kevin Bacon, asked consent to search the house, and Mark Latunsky granted it.
The house was located about 20 minutes from Schwartz Creek, where Kevin lived. As officers approached the property, they had no idea of the nightmare they were about to uncover. Mark Latunsky greeted the officers at the door. He was calm, friendly, and cooperative, giving no indication that anything was wrong. He even allowed the police to search his home without hesitation. Mark's behavior was unsettlingly normal for someone who would soon be revealed as a cold-blooded killer.
Me and one of the other officers remained with Mr. Latunsky, just conversating with him. While they were searching the home, Mark appeared very calm and collected, not nervous whatsoever. His Christmas tree was still up. We were talking about that.
As the police began their search, they quickly noticed something odd about the house. It was cluttered and disorganized with signs of neglect. But it was the basement that revealed the true horror of what had happened to Kevin Bacon. In the dimly lit basement, the officers found Kevin's body hanging upside down by his ankles, suspended from the rafters with chains. He was completely naked, and it was immediately clear that he had been brutally murdered.
When I arrived on scene, we were taken to a secluded room on the north side of the house. The room had a sliding barn door that only locked from the outside. So if the searching officers were not really thorough, it very easily could have been missed.
Further examination revealed that Kevin had been stabbed in the back, his throat had been slit, and his body had been mutilated in shocking ways. One of the most disturbing details was that Mark Latunsky had removed parts of Kevin's body, specifically his testicles, and admitted to cooking and eating them.
And I remember thinking to myself, what in the world are we looking at?
Mark would later explain this gruesome act in chilling detail, claiming it was part of his twisted fantasies.
So the man in the basement, when did he come to your house?
I picked him up. We physically met in Schwartz Creek. And that was when because he had given me details of what he wanted. And so I said, well, I'll tell you what, I will bring all of the things that you would need so that you can feed them. I said, I will lay them out in front of you. I says, then I'll step back. I says, you need to decide. You need to decide because I'm not going to force you.
The police were horrified by what they found, but their work was far from over. They began documenting the scene and piecing together the timeline of events.
And I said, if you're ready, I said, if you're doing this, then you put the stuff on. And then, so I sat in the front while he did all of that. He got all ready. And I said, look, this way you're leaving everything behind, and it's like, done. And then at that point he says, okay, I'm ready. I went around and I shut the trunk, and then I put, he gave me the key so that I could lock the car. I put his bag in the back. I locked the car.
You locked his vehicle?
I locked his vehicle.
So his stuff is in his vehicle?
His stuff was in his vehicle.
And then does he stay in the back of your van then?
He stayed in the back of my van.
Okay, and then you leave the parking lot.
And then I left the parking lot.
Okay.
And then we went back to the house.
When you're driving him from that parking lot to your house?
I actually had him sit on a blanket. and then I says, look, I says, if we're driving down the road and someone looks in, you know,
Right.
upper view.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
So I said, if you decide to go with the gag, I said, you know, then it has to be removable. I said, I could see it now. We get stopped by the cop. The cop looks in the back. He sees you all got gagged up, and he says, what's that? And I says, don't worry, it's okay, it's consensual. And then the cop is gonna ungag you, and he's gonna say, is this consensual? And you're gonna say, yes. I says, if you don't say yes, then you better hope that I never get out of prison. You know, it's like I laughed about it, but you know, that's all serious because people will say yes, and then later it's like, well, no, or I meant it to be no, or, and you really have to be very careful of when a person is saying no, and when they're really saying no.
So then you drive to your house, you get back to the house, and you guys go inside. When you get home to the house, is it just you two?
It's just us two.
Okay. And then at some point, he begins and you begin to act out his fantasy, which is what he wanted, or his fetishes.
And that he was living out a fetish fantasy,
okay,
as well as without going up. I don't want to have the details on any record. It doesn't need to be there. What he wants is what he wants is what he wants.
So when you were role playing for his fetish, how long do you think the fetishing lasted?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. I like I said, and even you know, it's kind of hard to gauge time in something like that because time just kind of takes its own toll. And it was at that point he says, okay, I'm ready. And after we sat and made an agreement about what was going to happen.
Mark Latunsky, who had remained calm throughout the search, was taken into custody. During questioning, he shockingly confessed to the murder, claiming that Kevin had agreed to everything that happened.
So what was the agreement?
I would make his body disappear. And we talked about, you know, several things. You know, what was I going to do? And part of it was the process of turning, you know, that what portions of his body couldn't be used or gotten. That there were certain things as far as turning his bones into bone meal and turning them into something that would grow tulips, for example.
Mark told investigators that Kevin had wanted to die and that he had simply helped him fulfill his wish. However, text messages between Kevin and Mark painted a very different picture. In their last exchanges, Kevin had expressed concerns about his safety and had asked Mark to ensure nothing went wrong. This contradicted Mark's claims and made it clear that Kevin had no intention of losing his life that night. Adding to the horror, police discovered that Mark had planned to use Kevin's body in other disturbing ways. He intended to turn parts of Kevin's flesh into jerky and use his bones as fertilizer for his plants. Mark had even purchased a food dehydrator to carry out his macabre plans. The discovery of Kevin's body shocked the local community and the nation. It was a crime so horrifying that it left even seasoned investigators shaken. Kevin's family and friends, who had been desperately hoping for his safe return, were devastated by the tragic outcome. This gruesome revelation marked the beginning of a long legal process, but for Kevin's loved ones, it was the end of a beautiful life filled with promise and dreams.
I don't want him to suffer.
I see that. When did you end his suffering Was he hanging or was he on the ground when you did his throat?
He was on the ground, and that was, and then of course it was a matter of doing what I needed to do to complete what I told him I would do. After, let me see, because as soon as he was at the point of being unconscious, and it was after he was, after I took the knife and put it into his spine, that was when it was like, uh-oh, I need to make sure that this is quick and not drawn out. Okay. And so it was then that it's like, okay, let's get this so that he quicker. I was trying to speed it up at that point because he was already unconscious. Okay. But I could tell, because, I mean, you could tell he was, in any case, it was the realization of this wasn't enough, and that was when, I hoisted and got all of that set up and had to apply the ropes, and that way I could take care of the rest. After it was done, I looked at myself and I went, I was covered in I'm a little not covered, but it's like I had some on me. I looked at it and I went, you know what? I'm not gonna wash him off. I went upstairs and I crawled into bed. I don't feel that I did anything wrong.
Mark Latunsky was born in 1969 in Michigan. He was a highly intelligent man who studied chemistry and worked in labs. But he also struggled deeply with mental health issues, which only worsened over time. Mark's personal life was troubled. He had been married twice and had 4 children with his first wife. However, he lost custody of his kids due to his mental instability. By 2016, Mark had remarried, this time to a man named Jamie Arnold. Jamie later said Mark's behavior was erratic and dangerous. He eventually left Mark, citing his refusal to take medication and his obsession with extreme BDM activities. After Kevin's gruesome murder was uncovered, Mark Latunsky was promptly arrested and charged with first-degree murder and mutilation of a dead body. The severity of the crime, combined with the disturbing details of Mark's confession, left no doubt about his culpability. However, the legal journey that followed was anything but straightforward, as Mark's mental health became a central focus of the case.
I actually texted a friend. I killed Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon is my hero.
Did you do this by yourself? You didn't have help?
I did it all by myself. I mean, it was during that evening, and then after he was, and I don't know, it's just flat out fact, is that after he was dead, he was hanging, I was done for the night, and it was then that I started to do what I told him I was going to do. It was the new moon, and honoring my word to what I said I would do. That was when I cut them out, and I took them upstairs and I ate them.
Initially, Mark's defense team argued that he was legally insane and incapable of standing trial. They pointed to his extensive history of mental illness, which included diagnoses of schizophrenia, major depressive disorder with psychotic features, and borderline personality disorder. Mark had been in and out of psychiatric facilities over the years, and he had a documented history of refusing to take medication. In the early stages of the legal proceedings, a judge ruled that Mark was incompetent to stand trial agreeing that he could not fully understand the charges against him or participate in his defense. Mark was sent to a psychiatric facility for treatment in hopes of stabilizing his condition. After several months of therapy and medication, Mark was reevaluated, and in late 2020, he was declared fit to stand trial. The court determined that he could comprehend the proceedings and assist his legal team, paving the way for the case to move forward. As the trial approached, Mark's lawyers prepared to mount an insanity defense. They aimed to prove that Mark's mental state at the time of the crime rendered him unable to distinguish right from wrong. They also claimed that Kevin had willingly participated in the events leading up to his death, alleging that it was a consensual act gone wrong. However, prosecutors were ready to counter these arguments with evidence showing the premeditated and deliberate nature of Mark's actions. In September 2022, just as the trial was set to begin, Mark shocked everyone by changing his plea to guilty. This unexpected decision went against the advice of his legal team, who believed they had a strong case for reducing the charges based on Mark's mental health. Despite their objections, Mark insisted on pleading guilty to all charges, stating that he wanted to take full responsibility for his actions. During his sentencing hearing, Mark provided a chilling account of the events. He admitted to stabbing Kevin in the back, slitting his throat, and mutilating his body. He described his actions in detail, showing no signs of remorse. The court found his crime to be premeditated, cold, and calculated. Ultimately, Mark Latonsky was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge emphasized the brutality of the crime and rejected any arguments that Mark's mental health excused his actions. The sentencing brought a measure of justice to Kevin's grieving family and friends, who expressed relief that Mark would no longer pose a threat to others. However, the case also left lingering questions about systemic failures. The court proceedings highlighted the role that untreated mental illness played in Mark's actions, as well as the neglect of law enforcement in responding to prior reports of his violent behavior. Advocates for justice called for better protections for vulnerable individuals and greater accountability for those tasked with ensuring public safety. In the end, the legal process brought closure to Kevin's loved ones, but it also served as a haunting reminder of the many ways this tragedy could have been prevented. Although Kevin Bacon's life was tragically cut short, his memory lives on in the hearts of those who knew and loved him. Kevin was not just a son, a brother, or a friend. He was a light in the lives of so many. Known for his quick wit and caring personality, he had a gift for making others feel special and valued. His co-workers at the salon remembered him as someone who brought joy to his clients and colleagues, always willing to lend a helping hand or a listening ear. Kevin's passion for hairdressing was more than just a job. It was his way of expressing creativity and making others feel confident. His dream of one day moving to Chicago and opening his own salon was a testament to his ambition and vision for the future. Although he never got the chance to realize those dreams, his dedication and enthusiasm continue to inspire those who knew him. His family and friends have worked tirelessly to ensure that Kevin is remembered not for the way his life ended, but for the way he lived. They have shared stories of his kindness, his love for animals, and his ability to lift others up even when he was struggling himself. Kevin's legacy is one of compassion and resilience, and his loved ones have vowed to honor that by spreading awareness about safety and supporting causes that reflect Kevin's values. Beyond his immediate circle, Kevin's story has had a profound impact on the broader community. His tragic death has sparked important conversations about the dangers of online dating, the need for better mental health resources, and the responsibility of law enforcement to act on warning signs. Advocates have used Kevin's case as a rallying cry to push for change, ensuring that what happened to him is not forgotten and that others are protected in the future. Kevin's legacy is a reminder of the importance of empathy and vigilance. While his loss will always be deeply felt, the love and joy he brought to the world endure in the memories of those who knew him. His story serves as both a cautionary tale and a call to action, urging us all to strive for a world where everyone feels safe, valued, and supported.
This is one of those horrific murders I've seen not only in this county but in the state.
The tragic story of Kevin Bacon is one that lingers in the minds of everyone who hears it. It's a story of heartbreak and loss, of dreams unfulfilled, and a vibrant life taken far too soon. Kevin was a kind, creative, and loving individual who deserved a bright future. But his encounter with Mark Latunsky turned into a nightmare that exposed deep flaws in the systems meant to protect us. Kevin's case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. It highlights the dangers that can come from trusting strangers in a world where not everyone has good intentions. It underscores the importance of being vigilant about personal safety, particularly in the digital age where online interactions can lead to unforeseen risks. But this story is about more than just Kevin's tragic end. It's about the systemic failures that allowed it to happen. The repeated warnings about Mark Latunsky's behavior were ignored, dismissed as inconsequential or unworthy of investigation. If those earlier cries for help had been taken seriously, Kevin might still be here today. This case is a reminder of how crucial it is for law enforcement to act decisively and without bias, regardless of who the victims are or the circumstances involved. It also raises questions about mental health care and the consequences of untreated illness. Mark Latunsky's violent and erratic behavior was well documented, yet he slipped through the cracks of the system, leading to devastating results. Kevin's case calls for a renewed commitment to ensuring that individuals with severe mental health conditions receive the treatment and support they need, not only for their sake, but for the safety of others. Despite the darkness surrounding this case, Kevin's legacy is one of light. He is remembered for his warmth, his humor, and his ability to uplift those around him. His life, though tragically short, had a profound impact on his family, friends, and community. The advocacy efforts that have arisen in his memory are a testament to his enduring influence and the desire to create a safer world for others. As we reflect on Kevin's story, we are reminded of the fragility of trust, the importance of compassion, and the need for accountability. His case serves as a cautionary tale, but also as a call to action, a call to build a society that prioritizes safety, equality, and care for those who are most vulnerable. Kevin Bacon's story will not be forgotten. His life, his dreams, and his legacy will continue to inspire change, urging us all to be better and to do better for him and for everyone who deserves to live without fear. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this story. I know this case was a difficult one, but it's important to share these stories to honor the victims and to push for change. If you found this video meaningful or thought-provoking, please consider giving it a like and sharing it with others. If you'd like to see more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment below. Your engagement really helps keep these conversations going. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and remember to look out for one another. I'll see you in the next video.
Eventually find her. I told her I loved her and said goodbye, wondering if that would be the last time I would talk to her alive.
On a frigid night in Racine, Wisconsin, Saturday, January 31st, 2004, a disturbing 911 call was made. A woman trapped in a garbage can packed with snow managed to whisper that her ex-husband was attempting to kill her.
I can't control her anymore, and I think that that's when he was really plotting to kill me.
As she lay confined in his truck, unsure of her destination, the icy snow surrounded her. She was terrified for her life. Terry Gendusa, born in the mid-1960s in Wisconsin, had a joyful childhood in a stable home and was close to her 3 siblings. Full of energy and lively, she thrived in her family environment. After high school, she attended the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, where she met David Larson in 1983 through mutual friends. They enjoyed hanging out together at local pubs, but their relationship remained strictly platonic. It wasn't until 1995, 12 years later, that Terry and David reconnected. At that time, Terry had recently ended a long-term relationship, and David had just left the Marine Corps. Both were looking for something more serious, and their shared history made it feel like the perfect match. They seemed ready to settle down together. However, Terry later admitted that she had rushed into the relationship. She was concerned about her biological clock and ignored some serious warning signs. David's bad temper and disdain for women were major red flags, but she overlooked them. Although his anger initially wasn't directed at her, it was evident in his mistreatment of service workers, like waiters and cashiers. Terry found his behavior embarrassing, but never imagined that one day she would become the target of his rage. For a while, his troubling behavior didn't directly affect her. Things took a dark turn after Terry and Dave married in April 1996. Just 4 days into their honeymoon in Hawaii, Dave hit Terry for the first time. His reason? He didn't like the way she was dressed. When she refused to change, he struck her, telling her that now that they were married, she had to obey him. He even said she was bought and paid for. After returning home, there were brief periods of calm, but with someone like Dave, the good times were always followed by darkness. His abusive behavior, both verbal and physical, escalated over time. Dave viewed their marriage as a contract in which Terry was expected to follow his every rule. He believed that failing to comply meant she deserved punishment, which often came in the form of violent outbursts. Throughout their marriage, Terry attempted to leave Dave 5 times. She would only return when he promised to seek marriage counseling or attend anger management classes. However, once the tension eased, he would break those promises, trapping her in a cycle of abuse. It's crucial not to judge Terry for her decisions. Victims of domestic violence often face complex situations, and Terry's case was no different. Dave controlled every aspect of her life. He forced her to quit her job, isolated her from her friends, and stripped her of any financial independence. He took her car, which was registered in her name, and denied her access to any financial information. Terry was given only $25 a week for her expenses, and she had to manage it carefully, showing receipts as proof to the authorities. Feeling trapped by her husband's control, Terry decided to comply with all of Dave's demands, hoping to meet his expectations and avoid further conflict. Over time, constant abuse wore down her self-esteem, and she began to believe that she was to blame for the situation, even though she wasn't. Eventually, Terry realized that no matter how hard she tried to be the perfect wife, Dave would always find something to criticize. He would lash out at her for his own frustrations, and she could never win his approval. By the time Terry had this realization and started planning to leave, she discovered she was pregnant. While she was excited about becoming a mother, she knew the home environment was far from suitable for raising a child. Still, she hoped that the arrival of a child might change Dave for the better. Although Dave was somewhat kinder to Terry during her pregnancy, things quickly returned to normal after their first daughter, Amanda, was born in 1997. Their second daughter, Holly, came in 1999. But even the joy of fatherhood couldn't change Dave's behavior. In late 1999, during a fight, Terry reached her breaking point. While the details vary, some accounts say Dave screamed at their daughter Amanda or pushed Terry while she was holding Holly. Either way, Terry knew that he had crossed a line by involving their children. Determined not to let her children grow up in such an abusive environment, Terry decided to leave for good. She gathered what she could, took the girls, and fled to a women's shelter while filing for divorce. Dave fought back by stalling the divorce proceedings, refusing to provide necessary documents, and trying to tarnish Terry's reputation. He was eventually held in contempt of court for delaying the process and trying to manipulate the outcome. His attempts to badmouth Terry, insult judges, and defy his lawyer only backfired. Finally, on January 31, 2001, after 3 long years of abuse, Terry was granted a divorce, severing her ties with Dave for good. Even after Terry's divorce from Dave, he remained a presence in her life. Despite Terry's detailed accounts of the abuse she endured, a judge awarded joint custody of their daughters. This meant that Terry still had to face the man who had terrorized her during the court-ordered custody exchanges. Dave insisted that these exchanges happen at his home, refusing to meet in public despite Terry's requests. It's unclear how he was able to dictate these terms, but it forced Terry to repeatedly confront the past she desperately wanted to escape. This constant reminder of her traumatic experience left Terry convinced that she would never date or marry again. She wanted to focus entirely on herself and her daughters. However, as the saying goes, love often comes when you least expect it. Just before her divorce, Terry had joined the Bel Canto Community Chorus, where she met Nick Nicolai. Nick was immediately attracted to Terry, but gave her the space she needed during her divorce. Over time, their friendship grew into something deeper. Nick was kind, respectful, and deeply empathetic toward everything Terry had been through. He also welcomed her daughters with open arms, treating them as his own. By May 2001, Terry and Nick officially began dating, and after 2.5 years, they married in October 2003. For the first time, Terry felt she had the stable and loving family she had always dreamed of. However, Dave didn't share her happiness. In his mind, despite the finalized divorce, he still considered them married in the eyes of God. He believed Terry had betrayed him and God's will by remarrying. This led Dave to blame Terry for disrupting their family, and he vowed to make her suffer for it. On the day their divorce was finalized, he told her that one day she would regret divorcing him. Terry, already fearful of her ex-husband, believed she had endured the worst he could do to her. Little did she know, this was just the beginning. Dave had more plans in store for her. All Terry wanted was to move on from her past, and she was doing just that. She had found a kind, loving husband in Nick, had started to rebuild her career, and just the day before, on January 30th, 2004, she and Nick had learned they were expecting a child. They were overjoyed, as were Holly and Amanda, who were excited for a new addition to the family. Terry and Nick couldn't wait to share the news with the girls the next day. Saturday, January 31st, 2004, marked the 3-year anniversary of Terry and Dave's divorce. It was an exceptionally cold day in Wisconsin. Bitterly freezing temperatures, high winds, and snow blanketed the ground. The weather was so harsh that it made breathing difficult. Yet the cold was the least of Terry's concerns. All she could think about was seeing her daughters and sharing the happy news of her pregnancy. As Terry prepared to pick up the girls from Dave's, Nick offered to go with her, but she declined. She knew his presence might escalate tensions with Dave, and she didn't want any unnecessary confrontation. On the way to Dave's house, she called to let him know when she would arrive. But when she got there around 10 a.m., Dave told her the girls weren't ready yet. Annoyed but not wanting to argue, Terry asked him to hurry and decided to wait outside in the freezing cold. For almost 20 minutes, Terry paced the driveway, trying to stay warm. Finally, Dave opened the door, but the girls were nowhere in sight. Instead, he came out and told Terry that the girls were hiding and that she should come inside to find them. Immediately, Terry felt uneasy. Dave had never allowed her inside his house since she left him, so his sudden invitation felt suspicious. But the bitter cold and her desire not to disappoint her daughters overcame her doubts. She brushed off her suspicions and entered the house, playfully calling out for her daughters as she made her way through. Almost instantly, her uneasy feeling turned to panic. Terry's worst fears were confirmed the moment she felt a searing blow to her head. She didn't realize it immediately, but her ex-husband, Dave, had struck her with a baseball bat. As she collapsed to the floor, Dave continued his assault, striking her repeatedly while yelling, "You always said I was abusing you. Now you can see what abuse really is." He hit her upwards of 20 times until she blacked out. When she regained consciousness, she found Dave binding her with duct tape from head to toe. Panic set in as Terry realized he had something terrible in mind. Desperate, she tried to bargain with him, promising to drop their custody battle and child support. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. Dave was instead fixated on a twisted idea. At some point while he was taping her ankles, her pants had come down, and he became irrationally convinced that Terry had done this deliberately to make him look bad, further proof of his deceived mindset. Once he'd finished binding her, he placed her bruised, bleeding body into a trash can, packed it with snow, and loaded it into the back of his truck. On one of the coldest days in Wisconsin, he left her half-naked, beaten, and covered in snow, showing no mercy. Despite the horrendous situation, Terry clung to a sliver of hope. In his frenzy, Dave had overlooked one crucial detail. Terry still had her cell phone in her jacket pocket. Though her face was covered with duct tape and swollen so badly that she couldn't open her eyes, she managed to break free from the tape around her wrists. Somehow, she wiggled her phone out of her pocket and dialed 911. Knowing it would be nearly impossible to speak clearly, Terry repeatedly relayed Dave's address to the operator, over and over again. Her efforts paid off, as it was enough to get the police and rescue dispatch to the scene. By the time they arrived, however, Dave had already loaded Holly and Amanda into his truck and left the house. As the police responded to Terry's 911 call, they unknowingly drove right past Dave's truck, where Terry was still bound and hidden in the back. Her vehicle was hitched to his, and she could hear the sirens fade away, filling her with a sense of hopelessness as it seemed they had missed their chance to save her. When the officers arrived at Dave's house, they thought someone inside might be in danger. They knocked, but when no one answered, they forced their way in, only to find the house empty. Meanwhile, neighbors had begun to gather, and through their inquiries, the police quickly learned about Dave and Terry's troubled history. It soon became clear that this was more serious than they initially realized, but they still had no idea what had actually happened. Terry, in critical condition, was drifting in and out of consciousness. Despite her severe injuries, she managed to call her husband, Nick, struggling through the duct tape covering her face to explain what had occurred. Nick, horrified, knew the best way to help her was to quickly alert the police. They both hung up and dialed 911 again. Nick reached the same Racine County dispatch center that had received Terry's first call, and the pieces started falling into place for the officers at Dave's house. They began to understand the full gravity of the situation. However, Terry's second call was less successful. By this point, Dave had crossed into Milwaukee County, and the dispatcher there wasn't aware of the danger Terry was in. Listening to the call, it became clear that the dispatcher didn't fully grasp the severity of the situation. While 911 dispatchers must maintain emotional detachment to handle their stressful jobs, there is a crucial difference between self-preservation and outright neglect of the caller's well-being. Unfortunately, in this case, it was the latter which contributed to the continued danger Terry faced. Terry's second 911 call left many people stunned and angry. The operator seemed to dismiss it as a prank, and her tone was cold and unhelpful, which only added to the frustration and fear of those involved. Listening to Terry's voice on the 911 call, it was painfully clear that something was terribly wrong. Yet instead of receiving compassion or a sense of urgency, she was met with skepticism and dismissal. Many reports about the case downplay this call, but it stands out as a striking example of a failure in what should have been her lifeline. Despite the horrific situation, Terry continued to fight for her life. When she regained consciousness and realized they were still on the move, she stuck her hand out of the garbage can, hoping to attract the attention of a passing driver. Unfortunately, it was Dave who noticed. Enraged by her attempt to save herself, he pulled over, struck her with the bat again, and threatened to shoot her if she tried anything else. As if that weren't enough, her cell phone rang, and Dave seized it, cutting off her last link to the outside world. She was now completely isolated. Aware of her dire situation, Terry decided to play dead, hoping to convince Dave that she was no longer a threat. As he unloaded the trash can from the truck, she lay motionless, faking death. Dave's plan was to leave her for dead in a storage locker. He wheeled the trash can inside, duct taped it shut, pushed it into a corner, and stacked boxes on top of it to ensure she couldn't escape. With the job done, he left, slamming the metal roll-up door behind him, sealing Terry in what he believed would be her tomb. Meanwhile, the police were ramping up their efforts back at Dave's house. Time was running out, and they knew they had to act fast, even though they had little to go on. They issued Amber Alerts for Holly and Amanda, sent out all points bulletins for both Terry and Dave's vehicles, and tried to ping their cell phones. They also conducted a more thorough search of Dave's home, which was complicated by extreme hoarding conditions. The house was filled with decaying food, dirty dishes, scattered laundry, and cluttered with narrow walkways barely passable through the mess. The question remained, would the police gather enough information in time to save Terry, or had they already missed their only chance? As they continued their search of Dave's chaotic house, the police made a disturbing discovery. The police discovered Terry's bloodied pants, wrapped in duct tape, along with a large bloodstain on the carpet. The size of the stain suggested that whoever it belonged to, presumably Terry, was in critical condition. Time was quickly running out, and if they didn't find her soon, they feared the worst. Despite their best efforts, every lead seemed to lead to a dead end. As night fell, the the police expanded their search to every place Dave had frequented, hoping something would finally come through. This turned out to be a fortunate decision. By chance, they spotted Dave driving to work, behaving as if nothing had happened. They quickly pulled him over, expecting a confrontation with a potentially violent man. However, when they approached, they found Dave disturbingly calm, collected, and, most notably, alone. Terry and the children were nowhere to be seen. Dave played the part of the confused ex-husband flawlessly. He acted completely oblivious to why the police were so eager to find him. The officers decided to adopt a non-confrontational approach and invited him to the station, claiming they just needed to clear up some confusion. Surprisingly, Dave agreed without hesitation. In the interview room, it became clear that Dave felt invincible. His arrogance was unmistakable. Within minutes, he told the police that Holly and Amanda were safe at his girlfriend's house, claiming that he had dropped them off because Terry had failed to pick them up that morning. Then Dave launched into a bitter diatribe about how terrible Terry was, portraying her as the true villain in their story. He ranted about how she had tormented him for years, completely unaware of the gravity of his own actions. The police let him talk, knowing that sometimes the best way to uncover the truth is to let someone lie until they trap themselves. As Dave tried to paint an innocent picture of his day, he began to create inconsistencies. He was setting the stage for his own downfall. Dave sat down and began recounting his day, painting a picture of a devoted father who had made breakfast for his daughters and patiently waited for Terry to pick them up. According to him, he had waited until 11:30 a.m. before finally giving up and taking the girls to his girlfriend's house. He seemed confident in his story. Unfortunately for him, that one detail would be his undoing. Terry's first 911 call had been placed at 10:57 a.m., and the police had responded to Dave's house by 11:03 a.m., a full 27 minutes before the 11:30 a.m. that Dave claimed he had left. And when the police arrived, Dave wasn't there. This contradiction was a glaring hole in his story. Once they caught him in this lie, the police didn't hold back. They confronted Dave with everything they had: the blood found in his house, Terry's pants, the 911 calls. They hammered him with the mountain of evidence, and as they did, they noticed something shocking. Dave was sitting there calmly answering their questions while wearing pants stained with Terry's blood. He hadn't even realized it. When the detectives pointed this out, Dave scrambled. He tried to change his story, attempting to backpedal as fast as he could. He created a new tale on the spot. He claimed that while packing his daughter's school bags that morning, Terry had somehow snuck into his house, dropped her pants, and attacked him with a hammer. He said that he saw her just in time and was forced to immobilize her with a baseball bat in self-defense. From there, he claimed he blacked out and had no idea what happened next or where Terry was. The detectives weren't buying it. They reminded Dave that it was bitterly cold outside and that if Terry was still alive, time was running out. They appealed to any remaining shred of humanity he might have had, asking him to think of his daughters. But Dave just smiled, yawned, and said he needed a break. He was in essence telling them that no matter what, he was determined to ensure that Terry would be dead by the time she was found. It was a shocking display of cold-heartedness. Despite being caught red-handed, literally, Dave showed no concern for Terry's life. His animosity toward her was so intense that he was willing to sacrifice himself just to make sure she suffered. The detectives realized they were dealing with someone who would rather go down for murder than give up his twisted sense of vengeance. Could the investigators find Terry in time despite Dave's stubborn silence? Or would Dave's twisted resolve seal her fate? During the interrogation, Dave requested a break, which due to legal protocols, had to be granted to avoid the interrogation being considered coercive. While investigators were obligated to comply, this break turned out to be advantageous for them. While examining Dave's personal belongings, investigators stumbled upon a significant clue. Among the clutter of his wallet, which contained business cards and receipts from various places, they found a business card for a storage facility located in Wheeling, Illinois, nearly 60 miles from Dave's home in Wisconsin. This seemed out of place and suspicious, as it was unusual for someone to store belongings so far from home. Despite the possibility of innocent explanations, time was of the essence. Desperation led the investigators to follow up on this lead. They contacted the storage facility and learned that Dave had indeed rented a unit there and had accessed it just hours after Terry's disappearance. This discovery intensified their suspicion, and they decided to investigate further. The facility attendant was asked to check the storage unit for anything unusual. After a tense wait, the attendant reported hearing sounds that suggested someone might be inside. This was a critical moment. Investigators instructed the attendant to call local law enforcement immediately, and Racine County Police set out for Wheeling, knowing that every second counted. As the Wheeling police arrived at the facility, they were prepared with a pry bar to force their way into Dave's storage unit. The urgency was visible, with the hope that this lead was not a dead end. Upon entering the unit, their initial optimism lowered as they observed only boxes, shelves, and a trash can. It was the trash can that ultimately caught their attention. It was duct-taped shut, which led them to believe that if Terry was in the storage unit, she would be inside this trash can. The officers proceeded with caution, removing the tape and opening the lid. Inside, they found Terry, bound with duct tape, bloodied, and barely alive. She was curled up in a fetal position, frostbitten, and in a state of severe hypothermia, with her body temperature having dropped to 86 degrees. Despite her terrible condition, having survived 27 hours in such horrific circumstances, Terry's survival was nothing short of miraculous. She had lost a significant amount of blood, suffered severe frostbite, and was in a critical state physically and mentally. But what wasn't immediately apparent was the full extent of her internal injuries. Her blood pressure and respiratory rate were dangerously slow, and her kidneys were failing. Despite these grave conditions, Terry was rushed to the hospital on February 1, 2004. Her medical team was initially not sure about her chances of survival, but against all odds, Terry began a slow but remarkable recovery over nearly 2 months. Although she lost all 10 toes to frostbite and tragically miscarried her and Nick's baby, her survival was proof of her strength and resilience. Dave Larson was convicted on several serious charges, including attempted murder, kidnapping, obstructing child custody, and interstate domestic violence. He is currently serving a life sentence for his crimes. In 2010, Dave tried to appeal his conviction on the grounds of double jeopardy, but the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals dismissed his claim. Undeterred, he then attempted a prison escape using a fabricated medical emergency, but was unsuccessful. In addition to his life sentence, Wisconsin ordered Dave to pay $3.4 million in restitution to Terry, as well as $300,000 to Nick, Amanda, and Holly. He tried to avoid this financial obligation by filing for bankruptcy, but his request was denied, as the debts were directly tied to his harmful actions. Dave continued to make attempts to insert himself into Terry's life, filing multiple requests for visitation with his daughters and for reductions in child support payments. However, all of these requests were denied. Now, with Holly and Amanda both in their 20s, Dave's connection to Terry has been officially severed. Despite the immense trauma she endured, Terry has shown incredible resilience and compassion. She believes that Dave, in many ways, is the true victim of his own actions, reflecting a remarkable ability to see the bigger picture. After her recovery, Terry and Nick welcomed a son into their family. Today, Terry works as a public speaker, advocating for victims' rights and educating others on how to escape abusive relationships. She has played a vital role in the creation of laws like the Wisconsin SAFE Act and Marcy's Law, and partners with organizations like Generations Against Bullying. Terry has truly become a powerful voice for change and a strong advocate for those in need. If you found this story inspiring, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and remember, sharing stories like this can help spread awareness and make a real difference in the lives of others. Thank you for watching.
This is me, July 29th, 2008. It is 12:33 Mountain Time. Covering all my bases, making sure that if something happens to me or my family or all of us, that our assets are documented.
On the morning of December 7th, 2009, in West Valley City, Utah, Susan Cox Powell, a 28-year-old devoted wife and mother of 2 young boys, had mysteriously vanished without a trace.
Josh had taken the children on a middle of the night camping trip.
He said he was out driving around, he'd gone out camping with the boys. And I'm like, are you a crazy man? It was cold.
Police received a call that would unravel one of the most disturbing and tragic cases in recent history.
About the fire in the 8200 block on 88th Street. The house, and he blew up the house and the kids. The kids and the husband and the father were in the house? Yeah, he slammed the door in my face. So I kept knocking. I thought it was a mistake. I kept knocking, and then I called 911.
Her husband, Josh Powell, claimed to know nothing about her whereabouts, yet his behavior and alibi quickly raised suspicions.
9 o'clock that night, Jennifer told me that Josh and the boys are home, and I'm like, well, where's Susan? And she said, we don't know.
What made the case even more puzzling was Josh's explanation of where he had been the night before. He told authorities that, in the middle of a freezing December night, he had taken their 2- and 4-year-old sons camping in the Utah desert.
Susan would have never allowed him to ever take the boys out in the winter.
Who were you camping with? My dad and my mom.
Susan Cox met Josh Powell in the early 2000s. At first, their relationship seemed loving and promising, and they quickly got married in 2001. However, beneath the surface, their marriage was far from perfect. Josh was an extremely controlling and manipulative husband. He controlled the family's finances, forced Susan to follow strict rules, and kept her isolated from friends and family. Their financial situation was unstable, with Josh accumulating over $200,000 in debt due to reckless spending. He refused to let Susan handle money, despite her working full-time, and even limited her access to basic necessities. Friends recalled that Susan often had to ask permission to spend money on groceries, even though she was the one earning a steady income. Even more disturbing was the role of Josh's father, Stephen Powell, in their marriage. Stephen had developed a disturbing and obsessive infatuation with Susan, which he documented in extensive journals. He wrote about his lust for her, stole her personal belongings, including her underwear, and even secretly filmed her without her knowledge. At one point, he even attempted to kiss her, leaving Susan feeling uncomfortable and unsafe. Fearing for her safety, Susan confided in friends and began documenting her assets and personal belongings in case something happened to her. A month before she vanished, she wrote a secret will, stating that if she died, it might not be an accident, even if it looked like one. Susan knew she was in danger, but no one could have predicted the horrors that would follow. On December 6, 2009, Susan attended a church service with her 2 sons, Charles and Braden. Afterward, a friend visited her at home in the afternoon, and everything seemed normal. That evening, Josh claimed that he took their sons on a spontaneous camping trip around midnight, while Susan, according to him, stayed home. The next morning, Susan never showed up for work, and her sons never arrived at daycare. Friends and co-workers became concerned when they couldn't reach her. Police were called, and when they arrived at the Powell home, they found no sign of forced entry, but they discovered 2 box fans blowing on a wet spot on the living room carpet. Susan's purse, phone, wallet, and keys were still inside, suggesting she had never left the house willingly. Hours later, Josh finally returned home with the boys, appearing disoriented and confused when questioned about where he had been. He told police that he had simply forgotten what day it was, which was why he had not gone to work. Investigators immediately found his story suspicious, especially considering that it was freezing cold outside and not an ideal time to take small children camping. As detectives pressed him for details, Josh's story kept changing, and he seemed completely indifferent to Susan's sudden disappearance. The inconsistencies in his alibi made him an immediate person of interest in the case. As soon as Susan Powell was reported missing, Josh Powell's behavior immediately raised red flags. He showed no concern for his missing wife, and his alibi was filled with contradictions. The claim that he had taken their 2 young children camping in the middle of a freezing December night was not only bizarre, but also highly suspicious. Investigators were determined to uncover the truth. When questioned, Josh struggled to provide a consistent timeline of his whereabouts. He told police that he had left for a spontaneous camping trip around midnight on December 6, 2009, and returned home the evening of December 7th. However, Josh had work that morning and never notified his employer that he would be absent. When asked why, he claimed that he thought it was Sunday instead of Monday, a weak excuse that detectives found hard to believe. Inside the Powell home, police discovered 2 box fans blowing over a damp spot on the carpet, indicating that something had been cleaned recently. Further investigation revealed small traces of blood on the tile floor near the couch, which was later confirmed to be Susan's blood. Adding to the suspicion, Josh's 4-year-old son, Charles, made a chilling statement when questioned by investigators. He told them that his mother had gone on the camping trip with them, but never came back.
Okay, so Charlie, when you guys came home from camping, who came home with you?
My dad.
And?
And my mom stayed at Dinosaur National Park.
Your mom stayed there?
Yeah.
How do you know your mom stayed?
Because I was coming.
Because you were coming?
Yeah.
So your mom stayed at the park?
Yeah.
Where did she stay at the park?
Do
you know where?
She stayed at Dinosaur National Park.
Do you know where at the park? No?
No. My mom stayed where a crystals are.
Where what are?
Where crystals are.
The crystals?
Yeah.
Crystals?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Crystals?
Yeah.
This statement directly contradicted Josh's claim that Susan had stayed home while he took the children out. Josh initially told police that Susan's phone was missing, suggesting that she had it with her when she disappeared. However, when officers searched Josh's car, they found Susan's phone hidden inside. Even more damning, the phone contained a voicemail message from Josh.
Susan, we are on our way back, and I can't believe that somehow my brain missed the day. I thought today was Sunday. That was really, really stupid. All right, I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.
Which he had left hours after Susan had already vanished, a clear indication that he was trying to fabricate a cover story. Josh's behavior in the days following Susan's disappearance only deepened the police's suspicions. Instead of cooperating with investigators or assisting in the search for his wife, Josh immediately hired a defense attorney and refused to take a polygraph test. He stopped speaking to the media, withdrew large sums of money, and within weeks packed up his belongings and moved to Washington State to live with his father, Stephen Powell. Authorities later discovered that Josh had conducted disturbing internet searches in the months before Susan's disappearance. He had researched how to dispose of a body in abandoned mineshafts, a chilling detail considering that Utah's deserts are filled with deep, hidden mineshafts. Police believe that Josh had planned Susan's murder well in advance and may have used one of these mineshafts to hide her body permanently. As investigators continued their search, Josh's father, Stephen Powell, also became a person of interest. Stephen had been obsessed with Susan for years, secretly recording videos of her, stealing her underwear, and writing about his sexual fantasies involving her in personal journals. During their investigation, police uncovered thousands of voyeuristic images and videos on Stephen Powell's computer, many of which featured women and young girls filmed without their knowledge. Shockingly, some of these images were of Susan, further implicating him in the case. Stephen Powell was arrested in 2011 for voyeurism charges, but police could not directly link him to Susan's disappearance. Authorities conducted extensive searches in the Utah desert, focusing on abandoned mineshafts where they believed Josh might have disposed of Susan's body. Despite multiple search operations, her body was never found. One of the strongest theories was that Josh had enlisted his brother, Michael Powell, to help cover up the crime. Michael had been deeply loyal to Josh and was later discovered to have disposed of his car at a salvage yard just days after Susan vanished. When police tested the vehicle, cadaver dogs detected the scent of human decomposition in the trunk, but DNA tests were inconclusive. Michael Powell later died by suicide in 2013, taking whatever secrets he had about Susan's disappearance with him. As the investigation continued, Josh Powell remained the prime suspect, but police struggled to arrest him without a body or direct physical evidence linking him to Susan's murder. However, his disturbing behavior led authorities to believe he was dangerous, and he ultimately lost custody of his 2 sons. The children were placed in the care of Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, as the investigation into their mother's disappearance remained open. Josh fought to regain custody, but the legal system was closing in on him, and detectives were working to build a case that could finally lead to his arrest. However, before police could bring charges against Josh, he made one final horrifying decision that would ensure no one would ever know the full truth about what happened to Susan. As the investigation into Susan Powell's disappearance continued, police turned their attention to Josh Powell's father, Stephen Powell, whose disturbing obsession with Susan had raised concerns for years. Although Josh remained the primary suspect in his wife's disappearance, authorities had not yet gathered enough evidence to arrest him. However, in 2011, a shocking discovery at Stephen Powell's home led to his immediate arrest and set off a chain of events that would ultimately push Josh to his breaking point. The search of Stephen Powell's home, with Josh now living in Puyallup, Washington, at his father's house, police obtained a search warrant to look for evidence related to Susan's disappearance. When they entered the Powell home, they found volumes of disturbing material that would change the course of the investigation. Investigators uncovered thousands of images and videos of women and young girls, most of them taken without their knowledge. Among these images, police found several that featured Susan Powell, confirming suspicions that Stephen had been secretly recording her. In addition to the photographs, authorities found Stephen's handwritten journals, which contained graphic descriptions of his infatuation with Susan. He had written extensively about his desire for her, admitting that he had stolen personal belongings from her, including underwear. The evidence was overwhelming, and on September 22, 2011, Stephen Powell was arrested and charged with 14 counts of voyeurism and 1 count of possession of child pornography. Josh Powell loses custody of his children. Stephen Powell's arrest had serious consequences for Josh, who was already facing intense scrutiny from law enforcement. With his father now in jail and their home exposed as a place of criminal activity, Child Protective Services stepped in to reevaluate Josh's fitness as a parent. A judge determined that Josh's living environment was unsafe, and in September 2011, he lost custody of his 2 sons, Charles and Braden. The children were placed in the care of Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, who had been fighting for custody for months. Although Josh was allowed to supervise visitation, he was now under constant watch. His repeated attempts to regain full custody were denied, and it became clear that authorities were still building a case against him. This legal setback left Josh feeling cornered. He had evaded arrest for Susan's disappearance, but now he was losing the only leverage he had left, his children. As the noose tightened around him, Josh began to spiral, ultimately making a horrifying decision that would leave an irreversible mark on this case. On February 5, 2012, Josh was granted a supervised visit with his children. When the social worker arrived, Josh quickly pulled the boys inside and locked the door. Moments later, she smelled gasoline and frantically called 911.
Okay, I'm on a supervised visitation for a court-ordered visit, and something really weird has happened. The kids went into the house, and the parent, the biological parent, whose name is Josh Powell, will not let me in the door. What should I do?
What's the address?
It's 8119, and I think it's 89th. I don't know what the address is.
Okay, that's pretty important for me to know.
And I'd like to pull out of the driveway because I smell gasoline, and he won't let me in.
You want to pull out of the driveway because you smell gasoline, but he won't let you...
He won't let me in.
He won't let you out of the driveway?
He won't let me in the house.
Whose house is
Got the
it?
kids in the house, and he won't let me in. It's a supervised visit.
I understand. Whose house is it?
Josh Powell.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're
I
supervising
supervise
yourself?
I supervise myself. I'm the supervisor here. Okay, how long will it be?
I don't know, ma'am. They have to respond to emergency, life-threatening situations first. The first available deputy
Well,
is responding.
this could be life-threatening.
Within minutes, a massive explosion shook the neighborhood.
About the fire in the 8200 block of 188th Street. The house. And he blew up the house and the kids. The kids and the husband and the father were in the house? Yeah. Yes, he slammed the door in my face. So I kept knocking. I thought it was a mistake. I kept knocking, and then I called 911.
Firefighters arrived to find the house completely engulfed in flames. When the fire was extinguished, they discovered the bodies of Josh, Charles, and Braden inside. Josh had set the house on fire in a murder scene, killing his children before taking his own life. An autopsy later revealed that Josh had struck both boys with a hatchet before they died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Minutes before the explosion, Josh had sent emails to family members saying goodbye.
He said something about he can't live without his sons, and I'm not afraid of him. He'd never hurt me. I'm afraid of seeing something. I don't want to see it.
Confirming that this was a premeditated act of revenge against those trying to take his children away. A year later, Josh's brother, Michael Powell, committed jumping from a 7-story building. Police had suspected that Michael helped Josh dispose of Susan's body, and his death only deepened the mystery surrounding her fate. Their father, Stephen Powell, was released from prison in 2017, but died a year later. To this day, Susan Powell's body has never been found. Authorities believe Josh disposed of her remains in an abandoned Utah mine shaft, making recovery nearly impossible. In 2013, the case was officially closed, with the conclusion that Josh Powell murdered Susan, but the truth died with him. The story of Susan Powell is one of the most heartbreaking mysteries in modern history. A loving mother vanished without a trace, leaving behind 2 young boys who would never see her again. Although all the evidence pointed to her husband, Josh Powell, he was never arrested for her disappearance. Instead, he made a terrible decision that ended not only his own life, but also the lives of his 2 innocent children, Charles and Braden. The tragedy of this case is not just that Susan was never found, but that her 2 young sons, who could have lived happy and full lives, were taken away in an unthinkable act by their own father. Their grandparents, Chuck and Judy Cox, fought hard to protect them, but in the end, the justice system could not stop what happened. Even though police and volunteers searched for years, Susan's body was never found. Investigators believe that Josh may have hidden her remains in an abandoned mine somewhere in the Utah desert, a place so deep and dangerous that it would be nearly impossible to find. In 2013, the case was officially closed, with authorities stating that Josh was responsible for Susan's disappearance, but the full truth had died with him. Susan Powell's story serves as a reminder of the importance of recognizing the warning signs of danger in relationships. Her friends and family saw the struggles she faced, and she even left behind messages saying that if something happened to her, it might not be an accident. Sadly, her fears came true, and the justice she deserved never fully came. Though years have passed, Susan's memory lives on through her family, who continue to honor her and her sons. Her parents and loved ones still hope that one day her remains may be found so that they can finally lay her to rest. This case teaches us a valuable lesson about love, trust, and paying attention to those who may be in danger. Susan Powell was a wonderful mother, daughter, and friend, and she deserved a life filled with happiness and safety. Though her story ended in tragedy, she will never be forgotten.